Hey guys, welcome to Solo ReacTalk. Today I'm going to be reacting to Understanding Konrad Curze 40k Lore Night Lords featuring A Vox in the Void by the Amber King. Before I start that, I watched the video last night by Dark Viper AU, Reactors, the Professional Parasites, and he left me shattered. He left me shook. Like, he has brought my channel into question, and I don't know how to answer him. I don't know. Like, there's a lot of thoughts going on in my head right now, especially in terms of reacting to videos after watching that video last night. And I'll get deeper into it maybe during the weekend, but I just want to tell you guys right now that, you know, this kind of format of me reacting to videos might actually change in time. And yeah, I'm not entirely sure when, but I will inform you guys, you know, if things start to change. And, you know, in the comment section, you can tell me whether what I am doing, you know, reacting to someone's video in its entirety, you know, is actually a right thing to do. Yeah, I'm very conflicted. I am questioning everything, and it's eating away at me. It's really eating away at me. But enough about that. Let's just get back to the video. If you want to check out other reactions that I've done on the Amber King, remember the playlist card will be at the top. Just click on it and be able to access them. Yes, and I know about Konrad Curze from Spartacus, Italian Spartacus. I think that was his name. Yes, Italian Spartacus. He made a video on Konrad Curze, and I watched that one. You'll also see the card at the top here, and the original video, of course. And what I remember is that I did not like the conduct of the Emperor. I did not like his way of being a father to his Primarchs. I've been having this issue with him for a very long time. If any of you have watched some of my reactions to Warhammer 40k, you know that I have an issue with the Emperor. I have an issue in the way he, you know, has parental responsibilities over his Primarchs, but he does not express it. You know, he does not do anything. He just stays in terror, or he does other things while his sons are going through mental situations that need help, you know, and he's not there. He's nowhere to be found. He's nowhere to be found. So Konrad Curze is like the perfect example of that, where the Emperor, you know, he went down to his planet of Nostramo. He greeted him. He told him that, you know, he was going to be part of his Great Crusade. Of course, Konrad Curze already knew all of this. He already knew all of this. He was prepared. He can see into the future. But what infuriated me the most is that the Emperor also knows about his son's mental issues. You know, he's a psyker. He can read probably his son's mind. He understands that his son is going through some tough times on his planet. Why didn't he try and help him out? Just like with Angron, the Emperor is nowhere to be found when it comes to being a father to these Primarchs. He's nowhere to be found. But we are told that he loves his children. I find that very hard to believe. The more information I get from, you know, YouTubers who make videos on Warhammer 40k, the more I'm convinced that the Emperor simply sees his Primarchs as tools as well. He says that he loves them, but I don't think he really does love them. It's just a show. It's a gimmick, you know, to comfort them in this fake illusion of love. There's no love here. There's no There's no care. It's cold. That's all I'm getting from the Emperor. Just this cold, emotionless computer. Yeah. That's my opinion on the matter. I really, every time when we discuss about the Emperor and the Primarchs, you know, no matter which Primarch, but particularly Konrad Curze and Angron, those two, you know, whenever those two are brought into the spotlight, I get angry. More so at the Emperor than at the Primarchs, because, you know, we understand where they came from and what they had to do to survive and how far they've come. But with the Emperor, there is no excuse. There's no excuse. He has the time to help out his sons. He has the time to sit with them and talk with them. Okay, let's start with the video. Okay. Oh yes, Jacek Dolinsky, thank you for the suggestion to watch this video. Let's start. 3, 2, 1, go.
Justice is my purpose. The only route to total justice is fear. We are the weapon of fear no other legion dared to be. I became the sinner, the monster, the night haunter.
Looking to support the Amber King channel? Fenris Workshop are offering a fantastic deal on their wargaming products. Bring to life the battlegrounds and drama of the Horus Heresy, with Gamers Grass and Green Stuff World's gorgeous range of basing materials. Treat yourself to a new Rosemary & Co. brush set and capture the detail and care your miniatures deserve. And for those looking to save money, get amazing discounts on the range of second-hand miniatures Fenris Workshop has available. Build that force you always dreamed about without breaking the bank. Fenris Workshop's Order of the Stormcallers loyalty program offers a fantastic range of rewards, cash back, loot bags of different sizes, exclusive merch, and special products, all for buying the equipment you need. Paints, basing materials, miniatures, and so much more are all available at fenrisworkshop.com.
You know, I'm terrible when it comes to arts and crafts. I remember in high school I was bad at drawing. I'm still bad at drawing. I'm still bad at coloring in stuff, you know. So if I bought these things, they would look terrible. They would look terrible if I had to paint and, you know, put in the different colors, make it look like it's something that's real. I would just fail at it. So, you know, to those who can do it, yeah, you guys are lucky. Because if it was me, I'd be so bad. Really bad.
Thank you so much, Fenris Workshop, for sponsoring this video.
These humans, their imaginations are strong. Kill 1,000 men and they will hate you. Kill 1,000,000 men and they will queue to face you. But kill a single man and they will see monsters and devils in every shadow. Kill 12 men and they will scream and wail in the night, and they will feel fear, not hatred. They are panicky, gossiping beasts, these humans. It serves us to allow them to be so.
Justice, madness,
Konrad, oh no. Not all humans think alike. We are not homogeneous. There will be some who will be angry at you because you killed one person or 12 people. There will be some who will be fearful of you if you have killed 1 million or 1 billion people, you know. It varies between human. So, yeah, we don't all think alike. We won't all act the same way. So for him to proclaim or to say that, you know, humans are these gossipy things, I'm not agreeing with him there. Yeah.
Of righteousness, guilt and fear, the cornerstones of the broken mind that is Konrad Curze, Primarch of the 8th Legion, the Night Haunter. In a universe filled with horrifying demons and monstrous xenos, it would be a human, a transformed, an elevated one, but still a man that would inspire the adrenaline-spiked dread that haunts our species, reminding us of the time when we were ignorant savages that cowed from creatures in the night. The legacy of the Night Haunter is a brutal, sadistic, fear-driven ethos whose scars reverberate all the way to the 41st millennium. But who is the man, Konrad Curze, the person behind the veil of the Night Haunter? His story begins in the 30th millennium. Above a bleak and dark world, a gestation capsule roared down from the heavens, a comet blazing with fire and light, illuminating the near-perpetual darkness the planet was shrouded in. The capsule tore its way through the enormous hive city of Nostramo Quintus, plunging down into the depths, scarring the very Earth itself. The capsule's landing was so violent it even broke through the planet's crust, lodging itself deep underground. Emerging from the nearly obliterated capsule that still had the marks of claws on its burnt remains, a child opened his eyes for the very first time, finding only rubble. This child was special, elevated in a way he did not yet comprehend. His mind did not flutter to panic and fear. It chose one singular thing, one absolute to focus on: survive.
This child, I think maybe the Amber King is a bit vague here when he says child. Is this child like a toddler, or is it a baby? Like a baby, like it can't walk, it doesn't have teeth. It's just this, you know, baby. You know, I just need to understand that part. Yeah.
Child began to dig. Minutes into his sentience, he was already in a life and death situation. His fingers began to bleed, and fistful by fistful he tore the earth above with a strength that was beyond human. Bloodied and exhausted, the child broke to the surface, finding a near pitch black existence. The polluted air filled his lungs, and he was consumed by an overwhelming sense of hunger. He needed sustenance. His pitch-black eyes found the closest living thing, a human. The child sat upon the anemic, pale-looking thing before him, taking his first life and devouring his flesh, consuming the poor victim's brain. The young child saw something incredible. He saw the memories of his victim, soaking in the information and melding it with the wisdom that had been seemingly imprinted upon him. The polluted, nocturnal hellscape around him was the world of Nostramo, a hive world where midnight perpetually reigned in its pollutant-clogged atmosphere. The geology of Nostramo was nothing short of priceless, as the world's unusual crust had unprecedented amounts of naturally occurring adamantium. Enormous Gothic hive cities dotted the surface, houses and factories stacked upon each other, miles high. A maze of structures and alleys that all blended together in a disgusting concoction of pollutants that dripped down through the layers of civilization. To think about how daunting and overwhelming it would have been to be in the presence of this nightmarish place would have chilled you to the bone. He saw humans, things similar but yet not quite like him, pale-skinned people with pitch black eyes, much like the poor thing he had just devoured. From the moment he had opened his eyes, his brain had been filled with a catalogue of information. The child had understood his surroundings, technologies, and concepts to a level that was beyond an ordinary person. What he had seen was information. He was barely hours old into his sentience, and all he had known was the cold, exhaustion, hunger, and the dark. His framing for all of this came from that very first human experience he had.
Yeah, from this very first human experience, and even before that, him crawling out of his capsule, digging out from where the capsule was buried, all of these situations that he had gone through, and everything that he is experiencing right now on Nostramos, this is all being imprinted on his mind, This is all going to be something that attributes to him surviving on the planet. That the only way for him to survive is to continue to consume knowledge, to consume brain matter, from anyone that he kills. And yeah, like, if he was born on a different planet, maybe things would have been different. If he was born on a planet like the one Rogel Dawn was crash landed on, or any of his other brothers crash landed on, maybe things would have been different. If he crash landed on Prospero, where Magnus the Red crash landed on, maybe he wouldn't be eating people. He wouldn't be eating their brain matter. He would have a different outlook on humanity. But because it is Nostramo and it's dark, the people are living in this perpetual criminalistic civilization, this criminal-filled world. The only way for him to survive is to consume knowledge and to become a monster, to essentially become a monster. Did he have a choice? I don't know. I don't know if he had a choice to be different in this environment. But yeah, it's unfortunate.
The perception of reality from his victim's brain, still warm in his gut. The corpse before him was a criminal. They had seen the people of this world, the wealthy families who lived at the very top of these mega structures, enjoying the only sense of illumination the world could produce. They were corrupted, brutal thugs, vile people whose grip on power was enforced by tyranny and pain. And as the further one descended the layers of this gothic hellscape, the more desperate and depraved it became. Gangs roamed the streets, stealing, murdering, violating the population, who in turn had to steal, trick and lie just to survive. The population numbers of Nostramo was not kept down by war, sickness or murder, but in reality, self-erasure. No joy, happiness or warmth reached a majority of the people on Nostramo. A life with no future, destined to be corrupted by sickness or murdered. The vision the child saw must have been sickening. To a person so naive, what would that do to you? It was all wrong. The child felt it was wrong. Even he felt it was unjust. All of it. A sensation that seemed to have always been there, roared in his mind. He needed to fix this. Fix the world. Fix the people.
But the way you go about fixing the world and fixing the people, that's very important. If you use violence, if you use fear, it's not going to last. It's not going to last. You're simply suppressing the nature of the people in Nostramo and the cities like Nostramo Quintus. you're just simply suppressing what they have in their hearts and in their minds. That some of them want to commit these atrocities, some of them want to commit these crimes, to get ahead, to have more of whatever they want, and trying to correct them with such tools such as fear and violence and anger and blood and torture. It's just not going to last. Yeah.
He wanted to make it right. He wanted to make it just. She couldn't stand it. She clamped her hands over her ears and stifled a scream. It was funny, given what she intended to do, that she didn't want to scream. Screams brought trouble. She craved a little dignity at the end. She sobbed quietly, saliva running from her mouth. Her eyes screwed up so tightly that they vanished. Her face swirled. She never looked her best when she was weeping. Arjas always said that, teasing her tears away. A laugh tried to rise at the memory. It choked off in a strangled competition with her sorrow. She didn't hear the door. She didn't hear the slice of bladed fingers, breaking every one of her locks with metallic snaps. The apartment had been burgled many times. They had many locks. The door was scarred from battery, kicked in, bashed in, broken with hydraulic jacks. The stealthy entrance was gentle compared to the boot that had put the panels through, or the blowtorches that had reduced the first lock to a puddle of metal. The entrance was conducted with the respect for the occupants. The intruder had been keen to inflict no more damage than was necessary. She was still weeping, and didn't see him when he bent over double to pull his cadaverous frame through and stand, willowy, yet hulking, his inhuman head brushing the ceiling. But she did smell him. His pungent odor overcame the awful reek of the air exchanger, a heavy smell, redolent of death. Her sobs died. She took in a hitching breath, removed her hands from her ears and turned to face the creature that had come into her sanctum. She kept her eyes closed for several seconds, listening to him breathe. Quiet, yet audible over the thundering fans 100,000 lives depended on.
Night Hunter,
she said, opening her eyes as she spoke the words.
I have come for you,
Night Haunter said. His body was swathed in black rags, stitched together from the garments of a dozen looted corpses. No tailor on Nostramo would dare outfit this nightmare.
Why?
She said. She was too drained to feel fear. The situation was surreal.
I have done nothing wrong. I have lived all my life as well as I could.
You did not dream of City's Edge.
Everyone dreams of City's Edge,
she said. Her voice was small yet defiant.
I tried to make myself into someone who could go there. I failed, but I did no wrong in trying. I have never harmed anyone, or wished to. I've suffered life here without complaint. Why are you here?
The Night Haunter's eyes glinted.
The manner of your life is not my concern. It is the manner of your death. The manner of death you have chosen is a crime.
He took a step forwards, looming over her.
There were, in ancient places, laws against self-murder,
he said.
Suicides were buried without ceremony, in shame, and those caught attempting to kill themselves were often executed.
But I want to die,
she whispered.
Not the way I will end you,
he hissed.
What I will do to you will make you wish you had opted to live. I am going to hurt you as much as it is possible to be hurt.
Why?
She breathed.
There are no taboos against taking one's life here,
said the Night Haunter.
Many do. This is not a happy world, but it can be a better one. By killing yourself, you take the easy way out. You encourage others to do the same,
You might think you add yourself to a statistic, but your self-murder is much more than that. Every suicide adds to the rot weakening your culture. Every life abandoned is a signal that change can never be effected. You throw your existence away, and in doing so lessen the value of humanity.
He reached out a hand and ran a ragged nail gently down her face.
Yeah, like I said before, not all humans think alike. We're not homogeneous. Just because she kills herself does not degrade or devalue humanity as a whole. We cannot be judged by one person's actions, we don't have that kind of collective responsibility, if I can say it like that. Everybody is an individual, and they have a right to their own existence, a right to their own life, and what they do with it is entirely up to them. We can be there to support them, to give them words of encouragement, to try and help them in that manner. But for us to say that they are criminals simply because they want to kill themselves, no. And these laws that Konrad is speaking about from different cultures, from many hundreds of thousands of years ago, that is hundreds of thousands of years ago. What does that have to do with what's going on right now in Nostramo? Absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing. And he is also breaking a law. Breaking and entering into someone's house, standing before the victim and telling her that I'm going to torture you. He is a criminal himself. The hypocrisy, the arrogance of this man. I wonder, does he even realize what he's doing?
I am going to save you. I am going to save you all. The people of this world will rise above the station of beasts. I will make them. If I have to bathe in the blood of you all to make that happen, then so be it. Justice is my purpose. The only route to total justice is fear. Without fear, there can be no order. You will suffer now to feed that fear, so that many others will live, and this decaying society take the slow road to salvation.
He pulled out a long knife he had made himself. It was unlovely, a murderer's blade, but with it he would carve the most excruciating agonies.
Wait!
She said. The blade hissed through the air.
Do not try,
he said.
You plead for something you have already forfeited.
The first cut parted the skin on her arm, shoulder to little fingertip, no deeper than the dermis, for he did not want her hide to tear when he ripped it from her living body. It was so swift a movement, the blade was so sharp, she did not feel it. Her first unbelieving gasp of pain only came when the blood splattered to the floor. She clutched her arm, her hand hopelessly unsuited to the task of closing the wound. She began to cry again, this time from fear and pain. Curze grinned.
You do not wish to die any longer, I can tell. That is unfortunate, but it must be done.
He advanced on her.
Feel joy that your death will bring justice to this world. Feel joy that I bring order.
He cut again. This time she screamed. A droplet of warm, wet red dotted his cheek. He fought the urge to lick it off. He must be sober and serious.
I assure you, I do not enjoy this at all.
His heart quickened at the lie.
Yeah, that is definitely a lie. He is enjoying this. He really is enjoying seeing the suffering of others. And, his version of justice is not justice at all. Using violence, using fear to control the populace, it doesn't last. If he could access the memories in his mind, like how he did with past laws that forbade people to kill themselves. If they tried to kill themselves, they would be killed by the authorities. Why doesn't he access that same memory bank in his mind and see, the dictators and the overlords and the kings and queens who try to rule over their nations with fear and intimidation and violence? How long did those people last? How long did those empires last? How long did those countries last? Not very long. Not very long at all. You cannot control society with fear. You cannot control society with this sense of justice that requires bloodletting and death of so many people. It's not going to control society. If anything, humans are going to become normalized to this kind of violence, and then they're not going to be fearful anymore. They're going to overcome their fears. And then they're going to overthrow you, Konrad Curze. But of course, I know what happens, once he leaves Nostramo. We all know what happens. Yeah. So.
An enormous, looming figure, larger than any man, with knotted muscle, long dark hair, and midnight black eyes roamed like a creature of nightmare amongst the streets of Nostramo Quintus. The boy had grown, faster than any other mortal, into an enormous man. His physical strength was incredible. His speed was almost too fast for the human eye to catch. His intelligence was fierce, but most importantly, his presence was earth-shattering. A name, once screamed from the lips of hardened criminals, was now spoken in hushed whispers. A title that frightened everyone, from the old even to the children. Night Haunter. The boy had begun to grow, living amongst the damp, cold, poisonous streets and alleys. The boy had no one. Only the screams and cries of a tortured and beaten down population were his constant. His first interaction with other humans had been violent. Only hate and pain reached his feral heart. He began to watch, a creature hidden in the dark, observing the inhabitants of his bleak world. All the boy could see was a reinforcement of the vision he had seen, taken from his first taste of human flesh. The people on Nostramo were rotten. He saw horrifying acts, vandalism, thievery, and political corruption in all of them. As he began to hunt down more sustenance, he devoured more brains of the pale-skinned people, witnessing the miserable, crime-laden lives of all. He felt the need to correct it. It was a desire that was coded into every fibre of his being. The young man began to prowl the streets of Nostramo Quintus and began to act upon his ingrained moral code. Gang members, civilians and nobles would find this towering, superhuman figure lunging out of the shadows, moving at blinding speed, with only a second to comprehend the horror of what was occurring. The young man tore them to pieces, feasting upon their grey matter. A never-ending cycle began to emerge. His consumption led to more visions, a looking glass into the crimes of his now dead victims. Names, locations, and accomplices were all laid bare before him.
Why would the Emperor make Konrad Curze this way? Why would he make his genes or his DNA have this innate thought of him always being right, that he must be the one that is right in these situations, that he must be the one to dispense justice, because this sort of how do I call it, like this arrogance, to believe that you are always right, that you can do no wrong, you can do no harm, that everything I do is for the good of the people. And the fact is that he cannot question that in his own mind, that maybe I am wrong, maybe the way I'm doing things here is not the right way. He has not once even thought about that. He is so he is so entrenched in his belief that he is right. So what I'm wondering is, why would the emperor create a son this way? I know people told me that he was supposed to be like a judge or a like a part of the judiciary of the Imperium of Man, and judges are not always right. They are not always believing in what they believe is right. They question themselves. They go and do research, and then they come back with a different conclusion to what they might have thought in the beginning. They reassess themselves. But with Konrad Curze, he doesn't do that. He is so transfixed on what he believes is correct. This guy would have been a very bad judge. A very, very bad judge for humanity. Honestly. And imagine, I don't even think there would have been like an appeals court in the Imperium of Man. So who are you going to appeal to for an incorrect or what you believe is an incorrect judgment by the supreme judge of all humanity, which is Konrad Curze? Honestly, this guy is scary. He's really scary. Not just about his actions, right? But his belief in himself like that. It's very, very, very scary. Very, very scary. He also reminds me so much of the Emperor in that way. Where the Emperor also, he believes that he is right no matter what. Because he's able to see into the future, possible futures, all of these futures that he is trying to analyze and see the best possible way for his plans to come into fruition.
And so the hunt began again. A twisted moral code began to form. He killed, he witnessed a crime, and then he hunted down the next. Even slaying a random civilian, he would find he was justified in their death, seeing through their own eyes the monstrous life they had led. The bodies began to pile up. Entire gangs were left a broken pile of limbs. People went missing. Screams filled the nocturnal night, horrified at the monster hidden in the dark. Night Haunter, fear the Night Haunter. The young man's philosophy began to evolve over the years. More and more died at his hands, but yet the people didn't stop. Why? Surely they knew he would end them, yet they all did not change. The nobles were still corrupt thugs, the gangs still brutalized and tortured, and the poor still stole. The young man had felt this need to correct their behavior. In a way, he felt he needed to save them from themselves. He wanted to shape them, and this world into a just, serene place. How many times have you dreamt about shaping the world to your vision? That sensation of correcting all that is wrong in the world.
Okay, the Amber King, yes. I've had that, feeling in me maybe once or twice. Yes, that, if I was like the supreme ruler of Earth, there would be no poverty. Everyone would be educated. Everyone would have a job. The environment would be clean and everything would be wonderful. I did think of I did have those kind of thoughts, But that's just it. It's like, it's a dream. It's a wish that's not meant to come into reality, because what is required for you to do something like that, it cannot take you alone as one person. It needs a community. It needs the entire population to change the way they think about things, a paradigm shift. But if it's just you alone trying to force down this new world order, it's not going to work, you know? Using violence and fear tactics is just not going to last long. You've created an empire for yourself, yes, but once you die, this empire that you've created will unravel itself, and people revert back to what they used to do before. Because you haven't changed their minds. You've only suppressed what they've been doing all these times, you know. You've just suppressed it. You haven't changed it. Yeah.
To punish those who deserve it. The now enormous young man started to perfect his philosophy. He had learned so much in such a short time. He was a genius compared to those around him, and his observations of those panicky, gossipy beasts that was humanity helped him perfect his tactics. Hunting down his victims, the Night Haunter saw how humans screamed, how their hearts raced uncontrollably. Some wept, and some were too paralyzed to move. To see this enormous dark-haired man, midnight black eyes looming over you, with a voice that triggered despair in the very depths of your soul, how brave would you be? He saw how compliant the scared little creatures before him became, as their death was moments away. Fear kept them in line, too afraid to go outside, too afraid to commit the crimes in case the Night Haunter was prowling. But murder, dismemberment, and desecration was nothing new to the people of Nostramo. Their fear of stepping out of line had to be greater than the prospect of just death. The enormous young man began to ramp up. Victims would be hunted, finding those around them torn apart. They would catch a shadow moving out of the corner of their eye. He wouldn't let them sleep. For weeks the fear would build, cascading into a full-blown manic state. The Night Haunter was coming. He knew what you had done. He knew your sins. At the moment of frenzy, when all around knew that you were walking dead, there he was, the figure of nightmare. In his clutches, death was a release begged for by his victims. Weeks upon weeks of slow, grueling torture. He broke the body and mind, broadcasting the screams and cries for all to internalize. And then the criminal would die. Justice. Crime was binaric, black and white. He did not care why someone broke order, what age they were. It only mattered that they did. It was discipline, without any human nuance. No one had ever taught him, but most frightening of all, he enjoyed it. In the pouring, polluted rain, the Night Haunter began to chase another criminal, a young boy, through the gothic streets of Nostramo Quintus. He had caught the little thing in the act of attempted violation. He gave the victim a head start. He liked it this way. Catching up to the terrified young youth, he pounced on him, breaking his body and lifting him high, ready to break him. It was then that the sensation plagued him again. The visions. He saw the future. Multiple futures. Ever since his first moments in this dark hellscape, the Night Haunter found his body at times overtaken by glimpses into the future. It even haunted his dreams. He saw titanic battles with men in ornate, powered armor warring on distant worlds. He could see events unfold days or even weeks after he had foreseen them. He had even learned the name he was destined to have, the one that his creator had given him, or was going to give him, Konrad Curze. But what haunted him most was a vision of his own death, upon a distant, barren world. Inside a room made of screaming, tortured people, sat a disheveled king in midnight-clad armor. An assassin that he knew had been sent by his father strode up to the creature that was Konrad and beheaded him. To have seen how you would die at such a young age, what would that do to the mind? To have not even had the concept of mortality and human connection, and yet see the man who you knew to be your father is responsible for your death. With the terrified young Nostraman boy in his grip, Curze saw multiple possible outcomes. A future where he gave the criminal the justice he deserved. One where he spared him, reforming the broken child into a paragon. An example that would spread across this depressing world. And one future where the boy took his knife and wounded Curze. His survival would turn him into the most heinous monster, the one who had survived the Night Haunter, a mistake that would dampen the fear the Night Haunter inspired. No, that future could not happen. Konrad would not allow it. Reeling from the sensation of the visions, the Night Haunter strode forward, ending the vile criminal's life, even as he turned to see the boy's knife on the ground, out of reach. Was it fear or doubt that drove him to choose this outcome? Or were the other possible outcomes merely just illusion?
I think it was mainly fear. Fear of losing this persona that he has created. Fear of losing this control that he believes he has on the people. Fear of being wrong. Fear of being wrong. That what he's doing is wrong. Because, like I said before, he has this innate feeling of being right all the time. You know, that what he's doing is right. And the fact that he cannot think, he cannot question himself and say that, hey, okay, maybe this is wrong. What I'm doing here is actually a mistake. It's not how it's supposed to be. He cannot do that. He cannot do that. So now this poor boy is dead.
The vision of his death at the order of his father remained. Some futures of Konrad felt more real, like this was the true event to come, and yet all still led to that haunting death. It was like no matter what he did, he was following a path set out for him, like it was all fated. Each act of justice was a predetermined event. Each choice, each grueling torture was fated. And Konrad was just riding the path created for him. He had no choice. And so the Night Haunter continued. He began to ramp up. Criminals of all ages, even those whose crimes were petty at most, found a dark spectre hunting them. Weeks of anguish followed by a death so haunting it scarred the living of Nostramo, becoming a very silent place. Ascending to the very heights of the Hive cities, Konrad presented himself before the terrified nobles, begging them to kneel and follow his law or be destroyed. Some never left that council. The rest knelt before their master. A dark king had risen. Falling in line to the superhuman Night Haunter, Konrad began his reign of justice, utilizing the vast communication network of the Hive cities, the capture, death, and torture of criminals was cast throughout the cities, all mandated to witness the justice taking place. But this reign of dread was not solely a barbaric one. Corruption was eliminated. Illumination was brought to the previous crime-laden depths. The people did not starve. A living wage was mandated. No one was the victim of crime either.
But this was a world of illusion. This is not real. This is not real. He is suppressing who they truly are. He hasn't changed who they truly are. And once he leaves the planet, the people will revert back to what they used to be. Because he hasn't changed the people. He hasn't even, built institutions that will last on the planet long after he has left. He was the sole governing body on Nostramos. Through him, everything was orderly. Through him alone. There was no one under him that could manage this new society that he has created. There's no one there who's able to make sure that there is a police force, a criminal justice procedure, for anyone that tries to commit crimes. There is nothing. It's just him alone at the top. And he believes that he has now changed his society for the better.
It was Konrad's serenity. Millions of people lived healthy, safe lives, but in uncompromising, unnerving silence. Families sat at home, dreading to speak, not to mistakenly incur the gaze of the Night Haunter. Decades passed, and Nostramo had been transformed. Not a single crime had been committed in living memory. But everything would change on the day that Konrad knew would come to pass. A day he had seen in his prescience. At the borders of Nostramo, the Great Crusade had arrived. Descending from the dark skies like a shining beacon, an army landed. The procession made its way through the illuminated clean streets, all the way to the Night Haunter's palace. The pale-skinned, dark-eyed Nostramans wept. The majesty, such perfection. Some even went blind. Standing before the Dark King, Konrad finally lay his true eyes upon his father, the Emperor of mankind.
Yes, I remember Italian Spartacus talking about, the first meeting with the Emperor and Konrad Curze and how cold that discussion was between them. But I think I said it before that, the Emperor, he should have tried to talk with his son even more, especially on that first day when he met his son. He should have opened up to him. He should have asked him, is there anything that's going on with you? What's wrong? I can sense that you are in conflict with yourself, I know that you can see into the future. Tell me, what have you seen? And let's try and make sure that that future does not come to pass. But Konrad Curze himself as well, he did not confide to the Emperor that, Father, I can see into the future. These visions are causing so much pain in my heart and conflict in my mind. Please help me. There was no discussion between these two people. And the only person that Konrad Curze ever trusted really was what is his name again? Pilgrim. Is it Pilgrim or Pilgrim? I think it's Pilgrim. Yes, Pilgrim. One of the other Primarchs. He trusted Pilgrim with such important information. He told Pilgrim about his ability to see into the future. and what he has seen. He confided to Pilgrim when he should have been confiding it to the Emperor himself. You know? And the Emperor, like I've said, the Emperor himself has not really tried to actually just sit down with Konrad and try to understand Konrad, try to understand where is he coming from, what's going on with him, and then together help each other so that that future where, you know, his son's head is decapitated does not come to pass. Yeah.
It is better by far to be an object of fear than of respect. For one is a truth of the soul, and the other an illusion of the mind. You understand now, for them and for all enemies. Yes, I want it to be ruthless. Let fear enter in them once and for all, because only with terror could I change anything in this world.
That is lazy talk. Only with fear could you change the world. Only with fear? That's lazy. That's so lazy. You're taking the easy route out if you think that way, you know? To use fear against your enemies to control them, it's not going to last, like I've said before as well, you know? And to say that one is the illusion of the mind and the other one is the, the truth of the soul. Fear is the truth of the soul? No. And loyalty is not the illusion of the mind either. Yeah.
Curse!
Never once had Rogel Dawn called him by his forename.
Brother!
He had replied.
Throne! What are you doing here?
Demanded Dawn, his normal, affable tone swallowed in the depths of his outrage. A phalanx of golden-armed warriors followed their lord, and Curze had immediately sensed the tension in the air.
Punishing the guilty.
He answered coolly.
Restoring order.
The Primarch of the Imperial Fist shook his head.
This is not order, Curze, it is murder. Command your warriors to stand down. My Imperial Fists will take over this sector. Stand down,
said Curze.
Are they not the enemy? Not anymore,
said Dawn.
They are prisoners now, but soon they will be a compliant population and part of the Imperium. Have you forgotten the Emperor's purpose in declaring the Great Crusade? To conquer, said
Curze.
No,
said Dawn, placing a golden gauntlet on his shoulder guard.
We are liberators, not destroyers, brother.
I think both of you are correct. What Konrad Curze says that they are conquerors, it's true. You guys are conquerors. You are taking over planets that wanted nothing to do with the Imperium of Man, but you guys are imposing yourselves on them through violent means. You are conquerors. And also where the part where Rogel Dawn says that they are liberators. Yes, there are some planets that are ruled by tyrannical men or women who are, either techno barbarians, or they are, people controlled by the warp, by chaos gods and demons, and they're terrorizing their population. Yes, you're liberating those people from a terrible oppressor and violent people. That is true. Okay, so yes, both of you are correct. Both of you are correct.
Bring the light of illumination, not death. We must govern with benevolence if these people are ever to recognize our authority in this galaxy.
Curze flinched at the touch, resenting the easy friendship Dawn pretended. Bileless anger bubbled invisibly beneath his skin, but if Dawn was aware of it, he gave no sign.
These people resisted us and must pay the penalty for that crime,
said Curze.
Obedience to the Imperium will come from the fear of punishment. You know that as well as anyone, Dawn. kill those that resisted, and the others will learn the lesson that to oppose us is to die.
Dawn shook his head, taking his arm to lead him away from the curious stares their heated discussion was attracting.
You are wrong, but we should speak of this in private.
No.
Said Curze, angrily shrugging off Dawn's grip.
You think these people will bend the knee meekly to us because we show compassion? Mercy is for the weak and foolish. It will only breed corruption and eventually betrayal. Fear of reprisals will keep the rest of this planet in check, not benevolence.
Dawn sighed.
And the hatred planted in those you leave alive will pass from one generation to the next until this world is engulfed in a war the cause of which none of those fighting will remember. It will never end. Don't you see that? Hate only breeds hate, and the Imperium cannot be built upon such bloody foundations.
All empires are forged in blood.
Said Curze.
To pretend otherwise is naive.
Yes, Konrad Curze has a point. All empires are born from blood. It's true. It's true. However, what Rogel Dawn is saying is also correct. You know? Do not take more blood than honor demands. If I can say it like that. Yeah, I'm not sure. You know, don't take so many lives that who's ever left will just have that bitter taste in their mouths, who will remember what you have done, and you know it will just be passed down from generation to generation to generation, and this cycle of hate will never end. Not even fear will be able to conquer it. Not even fear will be able to contain it and control it. That hatred for the Imperium of Man will just continue to billow over and to be a weapon against the Imperium, because you chose not to restrain yourself from killing so many people. You know? Yeah. So Rogel Dawn, yet again, I agree with what you're saying, and also what Konrad Curze is saying is, you know, in terms of empires being built out of the blood of people. Yes, that's also true. That's also true.
The rule of law cannot be maintained by the blind hope that human nature is inherently good. Haven't we seen enough to know that ultimately the mass of humanity must be forced into compliance?
I cannot believe I'm hearing this,
said Dawn.
What has gotten into you, Curze?
Nothing that has not always been there, Dawn,
said Curze, striding away from the mighty golden figure and hauling one of the few remaining prisoners upright by the front of his tunic. He scooped up a fallen bolter and thrust the heavy weapon into the prisoner's trembling hands. Curze leaned down and said,
"Go ahead. Kill me."
The terrified man shook his head, the oversized weapon shaking in his hands as he thought his limbs were paralyzed.
"No,"
said Curze.
"Why not?"
The prisoner tried to speak, but was so awed by the terrifying proximity of the Primarch that his words were unintelligible.
"Are you afraid you will be killed?"
The man nodded, and Curze addressed his warriors.
"No one harms this man. No matter what happens, he is not to be punished."
Curze turned and walked back towards Dawn, with his arms stretched out to either side of him, presenting his back to the prisoner. No sooner than he had turned away from the armed man than the gun had been raised and the hard crack of a bolt shot split the air. Sparks flew as the explosive shell ricocheted from Curze's armor, and he spun around on his heel to smash the prisoner's skull to splinters with his fist. The headless corpse swayed for a moment before dropping slowly to its knees and pitching onto his chest.
That makes no sense, though. I don't know who wrote that, but that just makes no sense. This man was fearful of Konrad Curze when Konrad Curze was asking him, "Why don't you shoot me? Or are you afraid?" And this man could barely respond to Konrad Curze's question, So now all of a sudden, after Konrad Curze tells his soldiers not to harm this man, whatever happens, and Konrad Curze turns his back on him, and then all of a sudden, this man who was so fearful of Konrad Curze has the courage to pick up the gun and shoot him in the back. That makes no sense. That makes no sense, honestly. But anyways.
You see,
said Curze, his fingers dripping with blood and bone fragments.
And what was that supposed to prove?
Asked Dawn, his features curled in distaste.
that any chance mortals get, they will choose the path of descent. When he thought he would be punished, he dared not shoot. But the moment he believed himself free from consequence, he acted.
That was an unworthy deed,
said Dawn, and Curze had turned away from him before he could elaborate, but the Imperial Fist Primarch caught his arm.
Your warriors will stand down and withdraw, Curze. That is an order, not a request. Leave this planet, now.
Dawn's eyes were hard as granite, and Curze knew enough of his brother's resolve to realize he had pushed him far enough.
When this campaign is won, you and I will have words, Curze. You have crossed the line, and I will no longer countenance your barbarous methods of war. Your way is not the way of the Imperium.
I think you might be right,
whispered Curze. Look out at my father's Imperium. Do not unroll a parchment map or analyze a hololithic star chart. Merely raise your head to the night sky and open your eyes. Stare into the blackness between worlds. That dark ocean, the silent sea. Stare into the million eyes of firelight. Each a sun to be subjugated in the Emperor's grip. The age of the alien, the era of the inhuman is over. Mankind is in its ascendancy, and with 10,000 claws we will lay claim to the stars themselves. The Great Crusade, the reconquest of the galaxy, the unification of the race of mankind. Meeting his father at the steps of his Nostraman palace, Konrad was overcome by his prescient visions. It was so violent and horrifying that even he, a Primarch who had butchered and tortured thousands of people, tried to claw his own eyes out. Only with the intervention of the Emperor was he stopped, calming him, bidding he be at peace. The Night Haunter, also like playing a role, acting out what was destined to be, submitted himself before the Emperor, pledging his loyalty. Like all Primarchs before him, Konrad did not join the legion that had been created from his own genetic material. He began his induction under his brother Fulgrim, Primarch of the Emperor's children. Of all the brothers that strode through Nostramo on that fateful day, it was Fulgrim alone who had the decency to look him in the eye. Konrad began to pick up the information and battle doctrine at frightening speed. The gift of his superhuman genetics showing just how elevated he was, despite his somewhat barbaric origins. Fighting and learning by Fulgrim's side, he saw how the Imperium fought, how Astartes fought. He saw how Fulgrim used his legion as a symbol. Paragons decked out in ornate, beautiful armor. He saw the power of imagery. With his tutelage coming to an end, the first recruits drawn from Nostramo had been raised up, elevated to Astartes, and finally the Legion, Nostramans, and Primarchs were merged. The 8th Legion, now the Night Lords, were ready for the Great Crusade. Like all Primarchs, Konrad began to mold his legion, teaching them the aximons he had created, the mixing of his personal philosophy with the logistics of warfare. It is far better to be an object of fear than of respect, for one is a truth of the soul, and the other an illusion of the mind. He taught his sons to become icons of fear. Fear is the greatest of all weapons. Fear will cow a world where guns will not. We spill blood to to save blood. Why use terror? Terror is a clean blade. Its cuts disarm opponents without doing them harm. Terror is the friend of compliance. The few must die in pain so that the many can live in peace. Fear is the road to civilization. The ends justifies the means. Even on.
And yet again I ask, why did the Emperor allow the 8th Legion to turn out this way? Why did he just allow Konrad Curze to change his legion into these, I don't even know what to call them, these monstrosities that would torture and kill people in such horrible ways, and have it being broadcasted on planets, shown how their people are being tortured and murdered? Where was the Emperor in all of this? What kind of human society does he want to lead if this is being done under his name or in his name as the Emperor of mankind? Because people won't love the Imperium. People won't respect the Imperium. People will fear the Imperium for a time, and then they will start hating the Imperium, just like Rogodon has been saying.
Those cold, damp, rotten streets of Nostramo, Konrad had burned into his core that sense of wanting to make the universe right, perhaps the way the Emperor had made him. He had learned that these panicky, gossipy beasts that was humanity needed to be shepherded. He truly did believe in a united humanity, a universe purged of xenos and mutants, a serene utopia where fear kept the rabble in line. You understand now. For them and for all enemies. Yes, I wanted to be ruthless. Let fear enter in them once and for all, because only with terror could I change anything in this world. The 8th Legion became a force of terror. Konrad and his sons molded their armor into wicked shapes, displaying flayed skin and skull trophies like medals. They utilized horrific sounds, screams that would disorientate and spark dread. His sons became the tools, the extensions of his teachings. Legends such as Zo-Sahal, Shang, Fel-Zarost, Talos, and his most favored son, Sevatar. World upon world, all proud and brave in the face of conquerors, did not understand what was coming. The Night Lords, the Night Haunter. Upon entering the war zone, they wouldn't attack. The defenders' brave chants and boasting, rising like a crescendo until they realized the truth. Captives had been taken. Their screams of agony was broadcasted for weeks. The panicky, gossipy beasts would start to dread the night, alone with the bone-chilling sounds. And then they came. Superhuman warriors, in midnight clad, covered in still warm blood, led by an enormous figure that invoked our primordial fears. You can imagine the absolute, bone-rattling dread that would grip you, looking at the sea of monsters approaching. The surrender always came quickly. World upon world fell to Konrad and the 8th. So many had been spared death, but many of his brothers decried his way of war. Dawn tried to reason with him, telling him that the hatred planted in those that lived would pass on from generation to generation, until the worlds it would be engulfed in a war, that the cause of which none of those fighting will remember. It would never end. How could he not see that? But it didn't matter. Terror is the friend of compliance. So long as they were afraid, humanity would be compliant.
Take the universe and grind it down to the finest powder, and sieve it through the finest sieve, and then show me one atom of justice, one molecule of mercy. And yet, you act as if there is some ideal order in the world, as if there is some righteous in the universe by which it may be judged.
At times, in raptures of pain, I saw what was to occur laid out before me. In these waking dreams, I took countless lives with my bare hands, heads taken as trophies. I died again and again at the hands of my father, my sons butchered and maimed by their brothers. My name was to become synonymous with dread, but most vividly and most frequently, I saw my world pierced by a lance of purest light, splitting it, shattering it into dust. It was self-sacrifice. Konrad Curze, the Night Haunter, was creating a just universe for the Imperium, following his fated path created by his father's design. He would do it all, hands soaked in blood. The Great Crusade progressed for decades. The mere mention of the 8th Legion would cower worlds into obedience. They knew the stories, the horrific monsters clad in dark armor, covered in flayed skin and skulls. How death was a mercy compared to what they would do. Many, such as Dawn, decried the use of his tactics, but others were just as incensed with Konrad's twisted sense of justice. His dislike for humanity was apparent in his conflict with Magnus the Red. In a joint compliant action, Magnus sought to save the destroyed culture's libraries. The knowledge could be saved, used to aid the Imperium, but Konrad refused his brother's wishes, ordering a bombardment to destroy the last remnants of a defeated culture. What good did the knowledge of other worlds do for Nostramo? Learning of brighter places, civilizations with happy, compliant people.
You see, that notion that I said, that he believes that he's correct, he believes that he's right, no matter what. He will never question his decisions. He will never question, his actions. He will just stick to them, arrogantly so. Yeah.
Knowledge for Magnus was freedom, a concept the Night Haunter hated. The people did not need to be free. Their freedom led to choice, and choice led to crime. Freedom challenged the Night Haunter's justice. Though he despised the Emperor, his father, he still believed in a just society of humanity. It was the interpretation of that which drew the ire of so many of his brothers. Take the universe and grind it down to the finest powder and sieve it through the finest sieve, and then show me one atom of justice, one molecule of mercy. And yet, you act as if there is some ideal order in the world, as if there is some righteousness in the universe by which it may be judged. Konrad had seen how effective, how transformative his justice worked on Nostramo, that depressing hellscape. To cower and control that vile population, he had learned that only an absolute black and white system, something that disgusted his brother Vulcan, Primarch of the Salamanders. During a joint compliant action on the world known as Karastan, Vulcan and his salamanders fought alongside Konrad and his Night Lords. It was only up close that the horror of Konrad's philosophy was realized. During this campaign, Vulcan became disgusted with his brother, seeing the torture, the brutality, and disregard for human life, even witnessing the Ace slaughter the inhabitants of an entire city in order to seed fear amongst the general population. Vulcan, from his first moments, had never been alone. He had a family. He was raised with love. He connected to the people of his homeworld. He understood the human experience, something Curze never had. His first interaction with humanity was violent. He saw the world through a criminal's brain. He never saw all the good inside the hearts of mankind. Vulcan confronted Curze about his legion's actions, and the two demigods clashed. Battered and wounded by each other, Vulcan swore he would inform Horus and Dawn of his brother's disgusting actions, a slight Konrad would never forget.
I think Horus would not do anything about this. He would, try to negotiate a way out. But Dawn, he would put his foot down and say enough is enough. But, this Primarch, I forgot his name again, Vulcan, yes, sorry. Vulcan should have headed straight to the Emperor about this situation, instead of heading for Horus Lupercal as well as Rogel Dawn. He should have went straight to the Emperor and let the Emperor deal with this, because this is his son. This is his responsibility. I remember, I'm not sure who it was, the content creator who was discussing about Logar. I think it was the Amber King, where Logar was converting an entire planet into worshipping the Emperor as a god, right? And the Emperor himself personally, he went to that planet. He berated the word bearers as well as Logar, telling them that this is not what I want. This is not what I want for my people to do, to pray to me like I'm a god when I'm not a god. He personally went there to tell them these things, And then he destroyed that city, making sure that it's an example that don't ever try and do this again. But you see, that was the important thing right there, that he went there personally to talk to his son, Now, why hasn't he tried to do that with Konrad Curze? To tell him that, no, please, your legion cannot act in this way, in these depravities of torturing people, murdering people, destroying entire civilizations or entire cities, because they are breaking your so-called laws, and you're trying to bring your version of justice onto the planet. Why didn't he come directly to him and talk to him? Why didn't Vulcan head straight to the Emperor and discuss it with the Emperor and tell him, look, there's something wrong with Konrad Curze, you need to deal with this? But I can see that delegation of responsibilities amongst the brothers, it's so prevalent that the Emperor himself, he's just not there. He's just not interested in what's going on with his sons' lives, Just like with Angron and the World Eaters, what was happening there? The bloodletting, the utter destruction that they left on millions of worlds that they've conquered, The people that they've killed, everything, all that they've destroyed. The only time when the Emperor was interested on that matter was when the telepaths were relaying messages saying that there are entire worlds that are screaming in pain and rivers of blood are flowing on those different planets. And then the Emperor decides, okay, let me now decide and talk to my son Angron to tell him to stop doing all of this stuff. And then he delegates one of his other sons, I'm not sure about the prime, I think it was Al Johnson. Yes, he delegated Al Johnson to go deal with the matter, instead of himself as the Emperor, as the father, to go there personally and talk to him. Oh, I'm sorry guys. I'm sorry if I'm repeating the same argument over and over again. It's just that this is very important. If you want to be a father, right, you can't delegate your responsibilities to other people. You can't have excuses that I'm busy with this, I'm busy with that, or I don't have time to deal with my son or my daughter if they have issues. You want to be a father. You wanted these children. Take care of these children. Make sure that they are taken down the right path. You are responsible.
Vulcan had not seen humanity like he had. His sense of justice was naive. After decades of warfare against numerous Xenos species and lost colonies of mankind, the 8th Legion had cut a bloody swath across the galaxy. But the cost of decades of warfare came full circle to the Legion. Absent of the Night Haunter, Nostramo began to fall into its old ways. A coup had been launched. The old, corrupt noble families, generations who had lived on a world devoid of the Night Haunter's presence, had overcome their fear. For decades, the bravest, brightest minds on Nostramo had been taken, inducted into their Dark King's Legion. With the regime change, the dregs and damned, the boys who were unredeemable, languishing in prisons, were offered up. Men who were mirrors of the very criminals the Night Haunter had hunted were now transformed. They were now in midnight clad. Fear was their weapon. But slowly the Legion began to rot, filled with legionaries who turned their weapons into sadistic delight, butchering and torturing for the enjoyment, something the Night Haunter would have to cleanse.
And you see, like I said before, the Konrad has not changed his society on Nostramo. It's still the same. Nothing has changed. It's just that now that he's absent from ruling over Nostramo, people are overcoming their fears and they're reverting back to what they used to do. He has failed. His version of justice has failed. Spectacularly. And what makes it even worse, like I've said before, is that he cannot accept that in his mind, that he is wrong and that he needs to correct it. He needs to correct himself. He needs to change the way he does things. He cannot accept that. He cannot even recognize that. What kind of a judge is this, really? Emperor? What kind of judge would this be, really? Konrad Curze?
Sevatar had never met the Raven Lord, only seen him from a distance, and he had never seen the Night Haunter and Korax side by side. It was said they were brothers, cast in the same mold, and truly the similarities between them were astonishing. Their skin shared death's pallor, their eyes were sinister orbs of ink, the Raven Lord's completely black, the Lord of Murder's barely less so, only a touch of white either side of his enlarged pupils. Both carried talons of steel, both evoked winged creatures of darkness, one Chiroptian, the other Avian. Both were masters of the dark. Their facial features were markedly fraternal. Long, thin noses, narrow faces, high cheekbones, sharp chins, jet black hair. The differences were starker for the similarities. Curze was filthy and stank of blood. Korax was clean, his armor polished, but it was their expressions that they diverged the most. Corvus Korax bore a perpetual light frown, an expression of such utmost seriousness it strayed into caricature. Curze's face changed constantly, small ticks, transforming it from arch knowingness to wild-eyed threat. Signs of the incipient madness that, even then, Sevatar was becoming aware of. The possibility of violence turned the air to glass, which any sudden movement might shatter. Two lords of men, one midnight clad, the other armored in shadow, stared at one another. Distant rumbling sent dying tremors through the building as the bombardment moved on to the other districts. Korax broke the silence first.
What is the meaning of this, my brother?
He said, gesturing meter-long claws at the mess of the slain.
What happened to your warriors?
Unable to help himself, the Night Haunter snarled. He caught it and turned it into a mocking smile, but not before all present had seen his anger. He was a predator challenged by something just as dangerous. For a moment, Konrad Curze exhibited weakness.
I happened to them,
said Curze evenly. Korax looked over the ruined flesh in the room in disbelief.
What have you done?
Curze smiled blackly.
An internal dispute, Lord Korax.
He said airily.
A legion matter that I have resolved. You must understand there are many criminals in your legion also. You have your ways of dealing with those who stray too far from the bounds of good conduct.
He poked a blade of mercy through the shattered eye lens of a helm and held it up for Korax to see.
This is mine.
Korax's eyes lingered on the blood staining Curze's chin.
Then perhaps you could tell me why you are bombarding this already compliant sector.
This Raven Lord has fought most of his brothers. Let our Lord teach him a lesson.
For Vox Sevatar.
I say we fight.
Do not open fire!
Sevatar ordered. The muted clicks on the Raven's voxes intruded on their frequency, a sure sign the Ravens were also communing with each other. From their stance, he guessed their conversation was going the same way. Curze shifted his weight imperceptibly. Korax reacted in kind. His fingers twitched a fraction of a millimeter. The pair of them appeared at ease, but they were a hair's breadth away from striking. Don't, Curze, thought Sevatar. Don't fight him. Curze narrowed his eyes, crinkled with a smile. A little tension bled from the room.
We are the weapon of fear no other legion dared to be. We are the glorious 8th. You think I am a monster? I am a simple tool, like you. We have different uses, though identical edges.
I do not think anything about you, other than the disgust I feel for your methods,
said Korax. Curze shrugged.
You may join the line of all the others who feel the same. I don't care. I am exactly as the Emperor intended me to be. Are you really any better than I, Korax Shadow Skulker?
Yes, they are weapons. I think what Konrad Curze is saying here is correct, that, they are simple tools to be used by the Emperor. I know for a fact that this guy never liked them. He didn't love them as, his sons. I've been saying this. He never loved his the Primarchs as his sons. He just sees them as tools. And, it's just clearly evident. Every time, Konrad Curze is in confrontation with one of his brothers, you would expect that from the complaints from the other brothers, the Emperor would take notice of that and maybe personally come and deal with the situation. But there's nothing. There's nothing. There's absolutely nothing. But this situation just keeps building up and up and up, where so many of the other Primarchs, are becoming hostile towards Konrad Curze because of his methods and what he does. And there doesn't seem to be any sort of resolution to this kind of situation. Nothing at all. Because the head of state himself is not interested. He's just interested when his borders expand even further into the galaxy. That's all he's interested in. Not in the internal political dynamics that are happening in his Primarchs. He's not interested in that.
19th are assassins. We are all killers. We are brothers in methods as well as in blood.
Our way is clean,
said Corax. Sevatar found his voice annoyingly lugubrious. Such misery. They said he was raised in a prison, and that accounted for his saturnine demeanor. Sevatar wanted to hurl him into the deeps of Nostramo's hives, so he might better learn what lawlessness was. Self-obsessed, unable to see the truth for their own aggrandized woes. Curze was lonely in being true to himself. He was a fiend, but at least he was honest.
No war is clean. All of them come with a price.
Curze continued.
So because he's honest, does it make it any better? Really? Does it make it any better that he's honest about who he is and how he is? Does it change anything? And trying to compare him to Corax in that kind of way, does it make it any better? No. Not at all.
Some are more obvious than others, that is all. And the price must always be paid.
Curze sighed, shrinking into himself, bored.
War's reckoning awaits you. Do you wish to know the cost?
Corax's black, unreadable eyes rested on Curze for several seconds.
I will return to my ship. Stop this bombardment. The conquest is falling behind schedule. We risk turning the population further from the Emperor's light.
I think you'll find them most pliable when I am done,
said Curze.
My Lord Curze.
Sevatar said stiffly, and severed the vox.
My Lord Nighthaunter. What are your orders?
Sevatar asked the question as neutrally as he could, belying his concern that the answer might result in a command to hunt down their allies.
Let them go,
said Curze sadly.
Now is not the time for us to kill our brethren.
Droll thing life is, that mysterious arrangement of merciless logic for a futile purpose. The most you can hope from it is some knowledge of yourself. That comes too late, a crop of inextinguishable regrets. But his soul was mad. Being alone in the wilderness, it had looked within itself. And, by heavens I tell you, it had gone mad.
He hated him, his mirror, his brother, the Raven Lord, Corvus Corax. Both of them had grown up on worlds overrun by criminals. Both had that innate sense of justice bound into their very DNA. Both creatures of night and shadow. Two men cast from the same die. But Konrad hated him. Hated how Corax was lauded and accepted. The Raven Lord had incinerated a world in his rise to the role of Primarch. Millions dead, but yet he was chastised for torturing thousands. Why did his father, the Emperor of Mankind, not give him a path like the Raven Lords? The journey Konrad was following filled him with resentment, because after a near century of constant warfare, the cracks were beginning to show. His soul was mad. Being alone in the wilderness, it had looked within itself, and by heavens, I tell you, it had gone mad. Alone, in the shaping of his moral compass, devoid of human love, the superhuman demigod Konrad Curze, for all his elevation above the mortal man, he was still human. And no person who had murdered, tortured and genocided as many as he had could still retain sanity. He had become the Nighthaunter, a figure of black and white justice who hurt the few to save the many, but a small part in the back of his mind was cursed with doubt. It was all piling up. The degradation of the Legion, its perverse new recruits, the re-emergence of crime on Nostramo, his desensitized veterans, and the visions. He still saw his own death. He still saw death and destruction, A time when legionary and brother would kill each other. Even a time when he had a particularly violent vision where he saw the future monstrosity he was destined to become. Squirming and lashing out, screaming in pain, horrified by his future, he awoke out of his trance and he realized he had murdered one of his archivists. He had killed his first innocent person, someone who he had no evidence of crimes for. There was no
Yeah, his first innocent person, right.
justice in his death. He was a criminal now. Perhaps he really did deserve the fate he was due.
Guys, he was a criminal, the Amber King, and guys, he was a criminal the moment he broke into someone's house, that lady's house, and, you know, told her that I'm going to torture you to death. That was the first moment he was a criminal. Well, that we know of. I don't know what he was doing before. Maybe he was still eating other people and also breaking and entering into other people's homes. But from what I can tell from here, you know, this murder that he has committed against someone here while he was having nightmares, it's not his first criminal act. He's been doing these things years ago. So this is nothing. It's just another number to his tally of people that he has killed.
He was falling. Even his closest sons, Shang and Sevitar, could see it. He was vulnerable and turned to the one person he felt he could confide in, Fulgrim, the brother who had guided him, the only brother who had looked him in the eye on the day they had met, perhaps his only friend. It was a defiance of destiny. Perhaps if he told his brother, then he was free from the future he saw. Maybe he wasn't to become the disheveled monster he had seen when he was a boy. But he was betrayed. Fulgrim had told Dawn everything. His confidence, his secrecy, his vulnerability was betrayed. We all know the confusion, pain, and hate caused when the person we trusted turns their back on us. Dawn chastised Konrad. How dare he speak of betrayals against the Emperor? In the mass of judgment and anger, Konrad was struck by another horrifying vision. Pain shot all over his body as images of a future of fire and blood ravaged his mind. He became a wild beast and began lashing out. The raving Konrad launched himself at Dawn, beating the surprised Primarch to a pulp, butchering several of his Imperial fists too. Shame and regret crept back into the devolving mind of Konrad as the vision ceased and the Lord of the Eighth fled, anguish turning in his chest from the betrayal of Fulgrim and for what he had done. Returning to the 8th Legion, Konrad was sick of it all. He had come to his brother to confide in him about the future and his legion, but he was met with betrayal. His legion was becoming corrupt, straying further and further from the ideals and teachings he had ingrained in them. That accursed world, Nostramo. He hated everything about it, and now it was corrupting his philosophy, his justification of all the deeds he had done.
He is so warped in that notion that he must always be right, that he is always right, you know, to the point where he starts blaming other people, you know, and blaming his homeworld of Nostramo for all of his problems, for what's going on right now. He is blaming Nostramo. He is blaming his brothers. He is blaming other people and not himself. He's not looking within himself and asking himself, am I the one at fault here? Am I doing things wrong? No. Not even a second of that thought has come to his mind. Instead, he blames other people.
It needed to be stopped. Konrad assembled the entire Night Lord's fleet. Arriving in the Ultima Segmentum, the shadow of an entire legion loomed over the dark world of Nostramo. A legion full of warriors looked at the place of their birth, the world they had grown up on, the place where their families lived, where their culture thrived, and then they burned it. Konrad ordered lancing strikes deep into the core of the planet, breaking it apart. Millions of screams lost into the void of space. Those that had resisted their orders were butchered by Konrad's ever-loyal son, Sevitar, until the weakness was cold. Was it justice or vengeance? That code forged in the dark, killing the few to save the many. But where was that? Did all Nostramans deserve to die? Even those who had done no crimes? No, it was all corrupt. It had to be, or what he had done, or what he had just done, was a crime. Condemnation poured in from the throne of terror. For decades a sentiment had mounted. Forces refused to fight with the Eighth. For decades, brother legions had begun to be openly hostile. And then the word came. The Emperor was recalling the Eighth back to Terra to face judgment. After all they had sacrificed, they had become the monsters to save lives. For over a century the Emperor had known their way of war, not afraid to utilize his terror unit when the hint of rebellion came. Condemning Konrad from enacting justice on that corrupted homeworld. He had made Konrad and them this way, only to act so above it. Konrad and the Eighth were angry, disillusioned, and it was at the height of this discontent that Horus arrived.
Yeah. Instead of going to him, the Emperor is calling him to terror. Hey. No. This father, guys. This father. Yeah. And really, what happened to Nostramo, it's a shame. It's just a shame. It's really just a shame.
I have seen darkness, witnessed it in my dreams. I am standing at the edge of a chasm. There is no escaping it. I know my fate, for it is the future, and nothing can prevent it coming to pass. So I step off and welcome the dark. The visions were coming true. The time for brother and legionary to kill each other had come. Horus Lupercal, favoured son of the Emperor, had been corrupted by foul entities of the warp. Dark gods, created from the negative emotions of sentient life. Horus came to Konrad, whispering sweet words, designed to target the ego and anger the Eighth was feeling. Something Konrad knew was unnecessary. He had seen his betrayal of the Emperor. His prescience had shown him. He had no choice but to join the rebellion. It was destined. Upon the world of Isfahan 5, brothers clash in a battle so violent that to bear witness to the cacophony of death would destroy your sanity. The Salamanders, Iron Hands, and Raven Guard, retreating to their allied lines, wounded and beaten, hailed for their reinforcements. But a cold, eerie silence met them. And then the tension was finally broken. The Word-Bearers, Alpha Legion, Iron Warriors, and Night Lords opened fired. Konrad and his sons tore into their fellow Astartes, ripping them apart. Amongst the heat, smoke, and blood, Konrad was slaughtering the loyalist warriors of the Emperor. To witness his speed and prowess was like death itself, reaping souls. His sons around him screaming the battle cry that had originated from his favorite son, Sevitar. Death to the false Emperor. It was then that Konrad found them, his brothers, seeing Lorgar, that weakling priest, impaled on the claws of the ones he hated most, and he chose to intervene. Two black, pitless eyes met each other. The two brothers, cast from the very same die, locked their power claws together. It must have felt good to see the one who had looked down upon him shattered and wounded, confused by the betrayal. The Raven Lord, Corvus Corax. Wounded and deep in enemy lines, the Raven Lord made his choice and retreated, a decision that would haunt him forever. The battle had turned into a massacre, one of the greatest defeats the Imperium would ever know, but the sensation of victory was slightly tainted. Amidst the violence and betrayal, the 8th Legion had seen something unnerving. They had seen how some of the word-bearers had transformed into nightmarish creatures, and Lorgar Aurelian wreathed in a vile psychic flame. There was something unclean about them. Konrad, Sevitar, and the Night Lords were beginning to see that there was more to this rebellion. Konrad's disgust at his brother and fellow conspirators was quickly overshadowed by an invaluable prize. Vulcan, the Primarch of the Salamanders, unconscious. The brother who had condemned him decades ago during the Great Crusade found himself strapped to the torturer's table. The sight of Konrad to Vulcan filled him with disgust. The disheveled mess that was his brother looked awful. He was filthy, covered in dried blood. He was prone to twitching and muttering to himself. His features appeared even more gaunt. Was he speaking to Konrad or the Night Haunter? Konrad began to brutally torture his brother, occasionally hearing whispers in his head, at times succumbing to more violent visions in between decimating his brother's form. Konrad had been created a monster. His father had made them all like this. If only the oh-so-proud Vulcan would admit it. If Vulcan had been in his place, he would have done all the same vile acts he was condemning him for. Konrad's horrific torture of Vulcan ramped up. Physical and psychological pain that even a Primarch couldn't endure, placing him in situations where he was forced to take innocent life against his will. Were these people even criminals? Konrad's mental state was declining. He would twist scenarios where empathy and kindness was shown into unwinnable death games. Perhaps his soul was mad. Vulcan was the most human of all their brothers. He represented all the goodness in humanity, something that, if acknowledged by Curze, would call into question his horrific acts, because then he killed people, not the panicky criminal beasts he made them out to be. And Vulcan had to turn, had to show his true nature, that he was a monster deep down, because if he wasn't, then Curze had chosen to be one. His mind was devolving further, his frustration fueling the degradation, until finally he snapped, killing his brother in rage. But to his horror, Vulcan began to regenerate. Vulcan lived. Konrad's sanity snapped. Unable to deliver death, the punishment in his form of justice, it made him scream, combined with the fact that his father had gifted Vulcan with immortality, whilst he had been born a monster. Konrad began to kill Vulcan again and again. Was it justice, vengeance, or anger? It was lost in the maelstrom of madness. After months of mind-numbingly brutal treatment, Vulcan escaped, beating Konrad into an inch of his life, and then worst of all, sparing him, giving the monster his pity. The crumbled, broken mess that was Konrad did not have long to wallow in his haze. The War Master Horus had ordered the 8th Legion to the eastern fringes.
Lord,
He asked after several minutes of silence had gone by.
Speak, Sev.
Why do you hate us?
He asked it quietly, carefully, with no hint of offense or malice. The words still stopped Curze in his tracks, causing him to turn. The long blades curving from each of the Primarch's knuckles reflected the golden light of the Emperor's halo, several streets away.
What?
Sevatar spoke just as casually as before.
Why are you the only Primarch to hate his legion? What have we done to you?
Savitar, you're not the only one who has a Primarch who hates his own legion. I guess you don't know anything about the Primarch of the 12th Legion. You know, he also does not like his legion. You know, he thinks of them as... Well, he thinks that they're different compared to the people he used to fight with on his home planet. So he doesn't really respect them, you know, in a way, or he does not love them in a way that, you know, a Primarch and his sons would have that kind of father-son relationship. So yeah, Angron doesn't really like his legion that much. So you're not alone in that.
Curze smiled, barely.
I spoke with Angron and Lorgar not long ago. They told me of their purges, cleansing the untrustworthy elements from the 12th and 17th. I laughed when they said it, at the sheer absurdity of the idea. They knew exactly when to stop the killing of the weak, the treacherous, and the corrupt within their bloodlines. I wouldn't even know where to begin culling mine.
Sevatar snorted in dismissal.
On any other day, such words might hurt my feelings.
Look around you.
Curze said.
You were born on this world. You grew to adulthood here just as I did. The Emperor praised me for my rule over this world. Even Fulgrim admired it. A model of compliance. An obedient world, they said. Were my people happy? Did that even matter? I made these people human despite their feral drives. I made them civilized despite their baser instincts. I raised them above the level of beasts. That was my responsibility to them as a superior being, and I fulfilled it.
Curze looked to the grey spires, rising in every direction, and the frozen smog from the foundries and manufactorums, veiling the spire tops in a haze of pollutant smoke.
And see how my people rewarded me. I was gone only a handful of years before everything soured. My own homeworld poisoned my legion with recruits who were worthless as soldiers, violators, murderers, thieves, the scum, the dregs, the detritus.
Sevatar almost laughed.
Sire, you are no different. The Legion is disorderly and vile because it's cast in your image.
No.
Curze drenched the single syllable in regret.
No, you don't understand. I've never claimed to be perfect, Sevatar. But I became the sinner, the monster, the night haunter, so my people would never have to.
But you didn't have to do that. You didn't have to do that, really. You know, after you killed your first human being and devouring his grey matter, his brain, you know, that should have been it. You should have stopped right there and decided to think of doing things differently. You have all the knowledge in your mind on how to survive, on how to do things differently. You have that knowledge, but you decided to take the easy path. You decided that, you know, the only way I can change this society is by causing fear and killing people. That's what you chose. When you had other choices, it's true, you had other choices to do things differently, but you decided to take this easy path, the path that you knew that would be far more successful for you because of your super strength, because of your abilities. I mean, no other human being can do what you can do. And you took advantage of that.
And look at the result. Look at the recruits from Nostramo, less than a decade after I departed. Look at the filth they sent me. Look at the disgusting dregs of humanity my own apothecaries infused with my genetic material and reforged into transhumans. The 8th is poisoned, Sev. Generations of men who are murderers in my image, yet devoid of my conviction. They are killers and abusers because they want to be, not because someone had to be.
The end result.
If that is true, then why hasn't that happened to all the other legions in the Imperium of Men? You know, why hasn't that happened to all the other legions? If they wanted to be these bloodthirsty, killing spree kind of people, then why haven't they emulated you guys in the 8th Legion? No. It comes back to the fundamental question of what have you done to change Nostramo? You have done nothing. You've only suppressed the society there. You haven't changed the society's mentality. And thus that is why you will continue to have criminals and these terrible people joining your legion, because they emulate you. You are that person who started all of this on Nostramo.
Result is the same,
said Sevatar.
Fear is the weapon.
Fear is supposed to be the means to the end. Look at the bloodshed my legion has wrought these last years. Even before the crusade was done, fear became the end itself. It was all they desired. They fed on it. My sons were strong, so they bled the weak for their own amusement. Tell me, Captain, where the nobility is in that.
Where is the nobility in any of this?
Sevatar gestured to the streets of Nostramo Quintus around them.
You can claim a savage nobility, father, but this is far more savage than noble.
Curze's pale lips peeled back from his filed teeth.
There was no other way.
No?
Sevatar answered his father's snarl with a grin.
What other ways did you try?
Sevatar.
Answer me, father. What politics of peace did you teach? What scientific and social illumination did you bring to this society? In your quest for a human utopia, what other ways did you try beyond eating the flesh of stray dogs and skinning people alive?
It was the only way.
Sevatar laughed again.
The only way to do what? The only way to bring a population to heal? How then did the other Primarchs manage it? How has world upon world managed it, with resorting to butchering children and broadcasting their screams across the planetary voxnet?
Their worlds were never as serene as mine was.
And the serenity of yours died the first second your back was turned. So tell me again how you succeeded. Tell me again how this all worked perfectly.
Curze was on him in the time it took to blink.
Sevatar. Thank you.
The Primarch's hand wrapped around his throat, lifting him from the ground, stealing his breath.
You overstep your bounds first, Captain.
Oh, he oversteps his bounds when he questions you. When he questions your methods. Now he's overstepping his bounds. Primarch.
How can you lie to me like this?
Sevatar's voice was a strangled growl.
How can you lie to yourself? I stand here inside your mind, witnessing a theater of your own memories. Your way is the 8th Legion way now, but it has never been the only way. Just the easiest way.
Curze tightened his grip. Sevatar narrowed his eyes, his last breath escaping as Curze squeezed.
You enjoyed this way?
The captain hissed.
You came to love it, just as we all did. The power, the righteousness.
Curze released him. Sevatar crashed to the ground, his armor joints snarling as his ceramite scraped the rockcrete.
Son of a...
He trailed off, catching his breath.
The son of a god.
Curze said softly.
Get up, Sevatar. Leave me be.
The first captain rose to his feet, his vision blurred.
I'm going nowhere, sire. Not without you.
Curze smiled. His son could see that much, at least.
I admire your tenacity, I always have. But
It seems that Sevatar and Khan of the 12th Legion are the same when it comes to their loyalty to their Primarch. They love them that much. Wow.
you are a shadow of what I am, Sevatar. You cannot match me. Go.
Sevatar filled his lungs, the sterile air viciously cold as he drew it in. He hated them, his so-called sons. He had taken his philosophy of justice, crafted from his interpretation of a serene society, cloaked by an Nostraman worldview, and spread it to his legion. They had become torturers, icons of fear and terror, bringing justice to those who deserved it, and to create a human utopia, a very quiet and serene future, where the little humans stayed in line. It was the way the Emperor had made him, but his legion no longer killed for justice. They were simply enjoying it. After the escape of Vulcan, Konrad and the Night Lords headed to the eastern fringes, set to engage Lionel Johnson and his Dark Angels, a strategy to delay the First Legion and allow Horus to strike at Terra. Konrad and the 8th launched themselves at world upon world, cutting a swath across various worlds of the newly forged Imperium. Populations of billions would find their skies darkened by supposed allies, only to realize the horror when warriors in midnight clad started butchering them. Konrad, fulfilling the path he had seen in his prescience, slaughtered and killed without restraint, witnessing his so-called sons enjoy the slaughter and torture. But he did nothing. He saw no path where fate made him intervene. He just watched and judged. Even when he would snap and kill innocents, it was different for him. He justified it. Any who had died were destined to do so. His father had made him this way. His father had crafted his fate, so it was his fault. Their blood was on his hands.
No, Konrad. They are on your hands. They've always been on your hands. You cannot come here and start blaming other people. You cannot do that.
But the slaughter was not unchallenged. The Lion and the Dark Angels for years chased the 8th Legion. Hundreds of battles were fought in the ashes of ruined worlds, as legionaries butchered each other. The Thramas Crusade was raging across the eastern fringes for years, until Konrad finally bade the Lion to meet face to face on the barren world of Desolga. Descending down to the surface with just an honor guard, the two Primarchs met face to face. To see the two superhumans side by side was incredible. One the chiseled face of Terran perfection, the other a gaunt, dark king, both intimidating, but yet awe-inspiring. The sight of Curze shocked the Lion. His appearance reflected the heart within. A disheveled, pale, gaunt man stared back at the Lion, showing a murderous smile with filed teeth. The brothers spoke, Curze attempting to convince the Lion of the truth, that their father was a liar, a manipulator, that this rebellion had revealed his hypocrisy, that Horus had shown him the secrets of the warp. But he did this in vain. He had seen that he would not sway his brother. A genuine sadness emerged from underneath his mad features. A tragic glimpse of the person, of Konrad, the man behind the Night Haunter.
Look, the Ember King. What Konrad Curze is saying in terms of the Emperor not caring about them, he sees them as tools and stuff like that. I agree with you. I agree with you 100%. But everything else, saying that, what's his name again? I forgot his name right now. Oh no. I forgot his name. Horus, yes, sorry guys. Horus showed, knows the truth about the warp and all that kind of stuff. Yes, it is true to some degree. However, it doesn't help the argument purely because of what you've been doing. Destroying worlds, killing billions of people, it's not going to work right now. Trying to convince your brother that the Emperor is wrong. But anyways.
Only Konrad and the Lion had grown up alone, devoid of the warmth of human connection. They alone understood what it was like to see the galaxy unfiltered. At the onset of the Great Crusade, Curze had been the Dark King, the cruel Primarch in midnight clad, who cowed the enemies of the Imperium. A man who held so strict to his code that he knew when to stop. But the creature before the Lion was nothing like that. Perhaps never noble, but once sane. The Lion apologized to Konrad and then stabbed him in the gut. A vicious duel broke out, reigniting the conflict. Brother versus brother, legionary versus legionary. For years the conflict continued, until Konrad and the Eighth found themselves caught in a Dark Angel's ambush. Konrad was captured after a brutal duel with the Lion. Wounded and defeated, Konrad awoke upon the Dark Angel's flagship, restrained like a wild animal. But no cage could truly hold a Primarch for long. Konrad was locked within a comatose state, until he was reunited with his favoured son and first captain Sevatar. Utilizing his emergic psychic powers, Sevatar entered his Gene Father's broken mind, baiting him with the unspoken truth, designed to reawaken his lord. Why? Why did he hate his sons so much? They were his creation. His philosophy of justice was a joke. The minute the Night Haunter was gone, humanity overcame their fear. More lived through his methods, but the Night Haunter's peace was a joke. He was just like the sons he detested so much. He enjoyed the killing, the torture, the brutality, the tearing down of his father's kingdom. That was the truth behind all his madness. The reason he enjoyed all the evil he had done, and the hate he had for this cruel universe, was because he hated himself. He hated himself because he enjoyed it. He enjoyed it all. The words reached into Konrad, awakening the mad mind back into reality, and almost costing Sevatar his life. Even with all the hypocrisy and dressing down of his Primarch, Konrad's son was still loyal, perhaps both a traitor and a fool. Darting off into the bowels of the Dark Angel ship, once again Konrad became the figure of terror in the shadows, hunting the Dark Angel just like he had stalked the population on Nostramo. But it would all change soon. Sailing to the only beacon of hope, the Dark Angels arrived above Macragge.
You know I hate, detest, and can't bear a lie. Not because I am straighter than the rest of us, but simply because it appalls me. There is a taint of death, a flavor of mortality in lies, which is exactly what I hate and detest in the world, what I want to forget.
You are repugnant,
said Sanguinius.
So pretty. So stupid. Father's favored cockerel preening in the hen coop. Is monstrousness not rather the point of me?
Curze replied bitterly.
Tell me, brother, I am curious. Are you one of the ones who believe our scattering was chance, or one of the ones who do not? I think Gilliman is in the latter camp. I can see the thought ticking around that tedious track of a mind he has, like a rodent in a maze, desperate to find a different way out, but knowing there is only one exit, and a feline waits without.
Yes, I've been told that, the scattering of the Primox wasn't by chance. It was intentional. The woman who would be their genetic mother, if I'm not mistaken, I forgot her name now. I've been told by Major Kill and by some people who comment on my videos that this woman, this scientist, helped create the Primox, and once she realized that the Emperor was going to use the Primox in a particular way that she did not agree with, she decided to make a deal with the Chaos Gods to take the Primox and to, make them free from the clutches of the Emperor. But I think she didn't realize what would happen to the children, after she had sent them into the warp. And yeah, that's all I know about the lady. I know she was killed by Erebus's hands. I don't know how he killed her exactly, but I know that, Erebus of the Word Bearers killed her. She was also a perpetual, if I'm not mistaken. And yeah. So, the scattering of the Primox was not, just a coincidence or something that just happened by mistake. This was intentional. Yeah. Okay.
Tick, tick, tick.
He cackled, raking his talons slowly through the air.
Claws on the walls.
You came to ask me this? You are insane.
I came.
Curze shrugged.
I am asking it. Does my purpose matter? Come, Angel. Do you really think it was a chance? I want to know. Each one of us was cast away upon a world that turned out to suit our characteristics perfectly. Characters our father engineered. Furthermore, the characters of many of our Legion's Terran sons were also matched with those of the worlds we were found upon. And, oh yes, we can both see the future. I rather suspect, therefore, that Father can read it like a periodical. Can you stand there and tell me that it was chance? No? No reply?
No,
said Sanguinius quietly.
No reply, or no as in, no, you don't believe it?
Goaded Curze. Sanguinius' sword lowered a fraction. Why he confided in Curze he could not discern, but the words were out, and he could not have stopped them, even had that been his desire.
No, I do not believe our losing was chance.
Yes, yes, you see!
Curze became excited by Sanguinius' agreement.
A man who plans so long and hard to be taken in so at the moment of triumph? Nonsense! Congratulations, you are halfway to the truth.
That our father was a liar?
Was.
Curze said with a smile.
He is a liar, not was a liar. He still is.
Brow furrowing for just a fraction of a second.
Indeed, a liar, and more. For I am a monster because that is all I can be, and you are an angel likewise.
You had a choice, Curze. Father only made us. He did not shape us.
Curze's eagerness turned into a snarl.
I was made to be thus. Nothing could change it. I know because I tried. I did.
Curze's eyes gleamed with tears.
When? When did you try? I'm shocked. When did you try? Konrad, when? Unless maybe if the Amber King is not telling us when you tried to change yourself. But I don't remember you trying to change. Not even once. You always believed that you were right. That you were on the side of the right justice. You know? Since day one. So when did you think, or when did you try to change? I don't remember that. Now you're just lying here. You're just lying.
Ears.
For what? So that he might see me suffer as I failed. That he might tick off his observations upon his laboratorium chart. What kind of father makes a child to be one way, then castigates him for being so? You think me cruel. He is crueler. I was to be sanctioned for doing what I was made to do.
He clashed his teeth, suddenly vicious.
How is that fair? How can I follow the man who did this to me?
As quickly as a wave is spent, his ire subsided, and his brittle, agreeable manner returned.
So you see, he deserved betrayal.
That I do not believe, Konrad. Fathers lie to their sons to protect them, to save them. Our father hid himself for untold millennia among mankind, revealing himself only when he deemed the time right. The story of our scattering was a necessary lie, if indeed it is a lie. The difference between you and me is that you see sinister purpose behind his actions. I do not. His secrecy hurt me, Konrad, as much as it hurts you. And the conclusion you have reached hurts me also. But I will not cast myself into despair. That is the true difference between you and me. I will not abandon our father's dream. His plan is for the good of mankind.
Curze stiffened.
Oh, okay. Sanguinius, yeah. Very loyal, loves his father. He understands that his father, made secrets in order to protect his sons. That's all nice and all. That's good and everything. But it still doesn't absolve him of his responsibilities as a father to his Primarchs. He hasn't been there for them. He hasn't been there for Konrad. He hasn't been there for Angron. I'm not sure about all the other Primarchs yet. I'll have to, look up videos on them. But so far, these two, especially with Konrad, a prime example, he hasn't been there. So as much as Sanguinius, tries to defend his father's decisions, I don't see it. I don't see it. I don't see this grand master plan. I don't see this vision of a human utopia in the galaxy. I just don't see it. Because of all the mess that has occurred. The mess that could have been prevented. But instead, he would delegate his responsibilities to other people instead of him coming forward and dealing with it himself. So I don't see it.
When not threatening violence, there was something pathetic about him.
Good given to a species singularly lacking in goodness. Did you know that here at the heart of Guilliman's perfect little paradise, there are those that are not cared for? I have been hiding in the Illyrian quarters. Rebute's vaulted civil codes wrap themselves around the edges of such places tight as walls, but do not penetrate its wards.
The Night Haunter approached his brother. Sanguinius matched him step for step, keeping the distance between them. Curze dragged Ascelion around like a morose child might carelessly drag a toy, unaware of the damage being inflicted to the thing it cared for, as it fulminated on some meaningless slight.
To have been there, among the outsiders, the unvalued. They speak of me in whispers. They have learned to fear the dark. But has our brother found me? Has Has the lion thought to look there or anywhere on Macragge? No. Idiocy. I practically shouted to them to come for me. If you would look at this world and see the hope of the future, go to the poor quarters. There you will see the despair of the present. And you know as well as I, hope for the future is a lie. Everything goes back to the beginning. And our beginning is so very dark.
Is that what you believe, brother? That all this was inevitable?
I believe Horus's turning was part of our father's intended plan.
I do not think so.
It's possible. It is possible. I mean, like everybody has told me before, the Emperor can see into all possible futures. It's possible that he probably saw this future where one of his sons would turn against him due to the machinations of the Chaos Gods. It's possible. It really is possible. But I don't think we'll ever know because, no one truly understands the reasonings of the Emperor. We just don't get that guy, Yeah. He says he loves humanity, but even that, I question it every time I read comments or I hear it from, YouTuber videos based on Warhammer 40k, how the Emperor of Mankind, wants a better future for humanity. I'm like, no.
Curze threw up his arms, as if he would embrace his brother. Askelion's boot clanked on the floor as he dropped it.
See, what a marvelous heart-to-heart we are having. Why should we not? Our brothers have close relationships. Fulgrim regarded Ferris very highly before he killed him. And then Ferris was also close to Vulcan. So easy to dislike Ferris, but so much loved by others. Perhaps there is some hope for me.
There is hope for us all, Konrad.
Curze smirked.
No, there isn't. I am hated. You have always hated me.
You know I hate, detest, and cannot bear a lie. Not because I am straighter than the rest of us, but simply because it appalls me. There is a taint of death, a flavour of mortality in lies. Descending down the road to madness, Konrad hated what he was becoming, the monster he had seen in his visions on Nostramo. It was all his father's fault, this fate. Hiding in the cold, damp bowels of the Dark Angel's flagship, a trail of bodies were left in the Night Haunter's wake. Any sent to capture him were left mangled, tortured things. Some even with bite marks from when the Primarch had become hungry. Escaping from the lion's clutches, Konrad roared down to the surface of Macragge, finding himself at the heart of a new empire, Imperium Secundus. The innocent people of Guilliman's homeworld found this enormous shadow loom over them, like death itself. Was it a man or a beast? The Night Haunter began to butcher the screaming, terrified people, finding himself confronted by both Rabute Guilliman and Lionel Johnson. He fought them both with all the grace of insanity itself, pushing the two demigod figures to their limit. Even amongst the Primarchs, Konrad's prowess made him one of the best duelists, and his blinding speed and tenacity forced the Lion to protect the death blows aimed at Guilliman, the weakest amongst them. Detonating the explosives he had rigged around the chapel, Curze escaped, while Guilliman and the Lion only survived thanks to Barbarous Dantiog, teleporting them away. Seemingly unchallenged, Konrad dove deeper into the heart of Guilliman's realm, finding Guilliman's adoptive mother, Tarasha Uten. The elderly...
Whoa! What is he gonna do with the adoptive mother of Guilliman? Oh my gosh.
Matron stood up, and under the sheer weight of the Primarch's aura, his silhouette of dread and terror, she looked the monster in the eye and told the bastard to go to hell. For a man who had reveled in being an icon of fear, his weapon in cowering humanity, the act only in his dark moments he would admit to loving, the fearlessness of this mere human standing up to him must have filled him with rage. But before he could end the pathetic thing, an enormous man, covered in rudimentary armor, with obsidian skin and scarlet eyes barreled into him. Vulcan lived. Confusion, rage,
Thank you, Vulcan. Thank you. That would have been very sad if something had happened to Robute Gilliman's adoptive mother. Very, very sad. But thankfully, Vulcan was there to save the day. Phew. Hey, Konrad.
paranoia and hate flooded into Curze as the two Primarchs began to duel. Each death blow Curze gave his opponent, he would simply reawaken from. That accursed immortality. The brothers mercilessly attacked each other, but the duel was interrupted by the Cabal assassin, John Grammaticus, and his comrade, Damon Pytanius. Using a mysterious entity, Konrad was banished, and the Primarch found himself in the warp. The debilitating, insane Primarch was cast into that realm of madness, and there he saw the truth of things that their father had kept from them.
I just want to know, if you were thrown into the warp, right? Is it like space in terms of its environment? Is it extremely cold? Would you die from that kind of exposure? Or is it hot? Is it warm? Can you breathe? The atmosphere, if there's atmosphere in there, or if there's oxygen or something. I just want to know about that. Because I'm assuming it's like space, just that it's on a different plane of existence. But maybe I'm completely wrong about that, and it's a place where, you can breathe the environment, and you won't die from like extreme cold or extreme heat. I'm not sure.
He saw his father's empire of lies. Konrad bore witness to the future of unending war. His father crippled on a throne of gold, a carrion god, ruling an imperium built on hate, superstition and war. Emerging back into real space, Konrad found himself again back on Macragge, a cacophony of justification added to his personal outlook. Infiltrating his way back into the heart of Imperium Secundus' realm, Konrad ambushed his brother Sanguinius, now the Emperor Regent, keeping a hostage in case he decided to get too brave. Konrad began to taunt his brother. Their father had lied to them, that all of what they had endured, even this rebellion, was part of his plan, a sinister plot to achieve his selfish goal of apotheosis. But the truth was buried in his words. I am hated. You have always hated me. And he did not deserve it. How could you hate someone who had no agency in their life? No choice. His father had made him this broken monster. He had implanted his sense of justice. He had allowed him to weaponize it for the Imperium for over a century. And his reward for all of this was condemnation, and then death at the hands of an assassin. He didn't want to be hated. Why? Why couldn't he be in his brother's place? Couldn't he be there in golden glory, and Sanguinius the rotten mad thing instead? Why did he have to be alone while his brothers were taken in, loved? He had tried to fight fate, but no matter what he did, this path was set for all that he was. Konrad, the uncompromising, cruel Archon of Justice, the Night Haunter, a symbol of terror and dread. He was still human. The loneliness, the torture, the pain, and powerlessness to fate, it had all broken him. Konrad offered his life to Sanguinius To end it all here, one last defiance of fate. His brother rushed forward, swinging down towards his neck. Konrad welcomed the release, welcomed the justice for the murderer he had become. But it never did. Sanguinius stopped. He wouldn't kill his brother. He told him that even he could find redemption. No, his freedom would not come. Fate had stayed the same. Konrad retreated, angry, ashamed, broken, mad.
Konrad Curze continues to blame other people. He says he has no agency, or he had no agency, that, everything was already predetermined and thus he had to just follow it. That's still not true. Just like when you had the choice to save that boy's life. You had the choice to save that boy's life, the one that he was chasing on Nostramo, and, he broke his back or something, and, he had possible visions of the future where, one, he did kill the child, the second one where he saved the child and he made him an aspiration, an image for society to, follow. And then the third one where the boy reaches out for the knife and cuts Konrad Curze, and he escapes somehow. He had those three options, but he reverted back to the one where he felt the safest. He reverted back to the one where it could perpetuate his image of being the Night Haunter, because he's afraid of letting go. He's afraid of being wrong. Now, if he had accepted that he was wrong, that what I'm doing here is incorrect, then he would have changed his path. He would have changed his future. And it would have taken a different path. It wouldn't be leading down the same path where his head will be decapitated from the rest of his body under the orders of the emperor. He had a choice, or should I say he had choices. He had agency. He had responsibility, but he chose the easy path. He chose the path that he already knew, that he already set out for himself. So him trying to find blame in other people, yet still, I find that completely irresponsible and wrong.
Like a man possessed, Curze began to roam the world of Macragge, reaping the souls of the pathetic creatures that served in his hypocritical father's realm. The man, Konrad, raving about his father's injustices, and the creature, the Night Haunter, brutally killing and torturing, enjoying the power and self-righteousness from their kill. For weeks, Konrad plagued the forces of Imperium Secundus, stirring up the broken and forgotten people who dwelled in the slums of the world, hated vagrants just like him. However, Lionel Johnson was able to corner his brother, and the Primarchs reenacted a duel they had fought a dozen times. Two of the greatest combatants, even amongst their brothers. The duels was a display of dizzying heights of martial prowess and strength. But finally, after years of hunting his brother, the lion defeated Konrad. But the sight of this poor, demented and tormented thing captured the last of what was pity in his heart. Instead of death, the lion broke his brother's back over his knee. The wounded, mad Curze was brought into custody and put on trial before the Emperor of Imperium Secundus, Sanguinius. Before Guilliman, Lionel Johnson and Sanguinius, Konrad freely admitted to all that he had done. It was a joke, to put him on trial when he was simply a victim of his father's constructed fate? None of the guilt was his, and what good was their judgment? He was still destined to die at his father's orders, the Mad King, disheveled and broken, alone on his throne. His judgment was given. Execution. But even as his brothers prepared to put down this mad monster, Konrad taunted them, even goading Sanguinius with his fate, the death they had both foreseen. A broken angel, murdered by Horus, his once closest brother. All a path constructed by their father. The enraged Sanguinius lashed out, preparing to strike him down, decrying that this was not how he would die. It was not how it would all end. Moments away from a death unforeseen, the lion appeared, roaring for Sanguinius to stop. Troops came into the room, demanding the lion's surrender, but he responded that Curze's prescience had shown his death would be at the hands of an assassin sent by the Emperor. For Curze to die, his death would have to be ordered by their father, which meant for that future to come to pass, the Emperor and Terra still stood. There was hope yet. With the dissolvement of Imperium Secundus, the Ultramarines, Dark Angels, and Blood Angels raced towards Terra, hoping to break the massive warp storm that had isolated the capital since the early days of their heresy. The raving Konrad, locked within chains, laughed. Once again he had avoided death. His fate was still on track. He was vindicated. He was justified. The Loyalists in their journey to break through the ruin storm followed the prescience of Sanguinius and Curze, the latter only revealing small pieces in rants between his deranged mutterings and apathy towards their cause. Arriving above the world of Davin, the Primarchs descended to the surface, Curze in tow as their prisoner. The further the group descended upon the world, the more Konrad began to panic. He had not foreseen this. All his life, he'd had the comfort of knowing what would happen next. But now he was utterly powerless. He was making decisions. The anger and sadness began to build like a wave in his broken mind. Choice. He had always had no choice. But each step he took towards the warp portal, located deep upon this strange world, was cracking his foundational belief. Arriving at the eerie temple, the brothers were in awe. The warp portal, the epicenter of where their father and Horus had entered that realm of madness. Caught off guard, the group was ambushed, and Sanguinius was swallowed up by the demon Medal's portal, the sight of which made Konrad shriek with concern and sorrow. Of all his brothers, Sanguinius had shown him kindness. Even though he was a monster, Sanguinius loved him. A feeling the all-too-human Konrad buried amongst the madness of the Night Haunter. Guilliman and the Lion began to scream at him, to use his prescience to see where Sanguinius was. But he couldn't. Konrad was panicking. He had seen none of these events, and it was breaking him, calling into question everything he had done. Emerging out.
So, it's the fact that they're in the proximity of this planet with this device that, you know, he's not able to see into the future, right? It's not just, you know, some sort of technology. It's the planet itself. I'm just trying to understand that. Yeah.
The portal, as demons erupted across Davin, Sanguinius dragged the fragile Curze aboard his flagship. As Guilliman and the Lion engaged the traitor forces that were blockading the path to Terra, they allowed Sanguinius and the Blood Angels the opportunity to defend Terra. Aboard his brother's flagship, Sanguinius decided again to bring his brother to Terra, placing Curze within a stasis coffin. As the brothers spoke for the last time, Sanguinius told Konrad that they would both face their destined path. Sanguinius had accepted his fate because he chose to. He was in control of his destiny, just as Konrad had had the choice too. Haunted, furious, and raving, Konrad screamed at his brother, trying desperately to hold on to the justification for it all, as Sanguinius cast his brother's sarcophagi into the void of space. A sense of pressure building before a storm pressed the air in the room to an uncomfortable thickness. From out of this rolled a thunder of words that Curze had yearned for, yet in the last sane pockets of his mind had never expected.
You are not weak, my son.
The voice drove Curze to his knees with its power.
Okay, Emperor. I like the voice actor. He's good.
His head rang with sudden, white pain. A roaring hurricane of might blasted from the figure, now surrounded with anesthetic light, tossing the remains of his last victims around and burning out the wall, exposing Curze to the light of the hateful stars.
Father,
He said. His voice was fractured, small, a child's voice, pitiful.
I am beyond your accusations, beyond speech, beyond anything. Why do you think that I speak? Your madness is finally complete.
Again the words rang Curze's skull, with the force of a clapper striking a bell. Still he managed to grin and raise his head to stare at the meaty thing's glory, though he was forced to squint against the blazing light.
no, you are here. I hear you. You have come to face my judgment drawn by this offering I have made. You were ever a bloody god.
I am no god, nor shall ever be.
Curze got back up, his feathered cloak whipping in the psychic gale, his book clutched protectively to his chest.
You are here. You understand your guilt. You have come to face my judgment.
You cannot condemn me. I am punished enough.
There is not enough punishment for what you have done. Not in this life or in the next,
Shouted Curze.
How dare you presume to understand what I have done, and what sacrifices I have made, and what I now must suffer.
The force of the voice battered Curze back.
You will never know the depths of my pain, for which I am grateful.
Curze opened.
The rest of us are not grateful. I want to know the depths of your pain. I want to know the truth. I want to know it, Emperor. It's the only way I will be able to accept all the things that you have done and the things that you have not done. It's the only way. For you to tell us that you don't know what I've gone through, you don't know my pain, the depths of my pain, doesn't help. Doesn't help.
Opened his eyes to peer sidelong at the figure.
Why such hollow words?
The voice took a moment before it returned, again with thunderous force that made Curze howl.
No father wishes his sons to suffer, no matter what burdens he is forced to place upon them.
An apology! What next? You will forgive me. Sanguinius warned me you might.
He scoffed.
There was never anything to forgive. You acted as you were made to, but my plan was interfered with. Your insanity was not your fault, nor was it mine.
Okay, it's not his fault and it was not your fault, but what did you do to correct that? What did you do to heal your son of his madness? What did you do? You did nothing. You did nothing. And now we are here because of your inaction. But you are telling us we must understand the depths of your pain.
Curze snarled like an animal.
Lies! Everything was as you intended!
There is nothing you have done wrong. If only you and I could have met one more time, I could have shown you back to the light.
One more time. You had ample time. Ample. You had years. You had hundreds of years. You had so many years. Like, I cannot even fathom them because I'm a mortal being. I'll only probably exist for at least 100 years. You will continue to live on. You had so much time to spend with your sons, especially Konrad Curze. You had time. Time was on your side. Time was your best friend. Not like the rest of us mortals. We are limited. You had so much of it and you squandered it. And for what? For your grandmaster plans to come into fruition? We have yet to see here. There's nothing that you've done here has succeeded yet, you know?
How marvelous!
Curze fell into a minute of wild, howling laughter.
I am the Night Haunter. Light is anathema to me.
Light is within you all. You are my sons. You are born of light. None of you are beyond redemption.
Tell that to those who died.
Nothing ever dies. Death is a state of transition. You have my forgiveness, Konrad, whether you want it or not.
Never!
The voice in his head would not relent, but pounded mercilessly on. More masonry fell from outside the wall. The floor collapsed behind him, frittering into constituent atoms.
You made but one mistake, my son. From it, all the evil you have perpetrated springs. You chose to believe in immutable fate. Without choice, there is nothing. These gods that taunt us rely upon choice. The functioning of this universe depends upon choice. A single fate is one book in a library of illimitable futures. You read only one. Do you not see that you chose this? You chose to be fate's prisoner. Had you believed in your own agency, none of this would have come to pass. You made this happen. You chose to be the way you are. Trapped, manipulated, insane.
Curze's smile froze.
And you, Emperor, you chose not to be with your sons. You chose not to talk with your sons. You chose not to help your sons through their mental breakdowns. You chose not to be close to them. You chose not to spend time with them. You, Emperor, you who preaching about choice, you.
Seeming to become detached from the face that it wore, hovering maniacally about his lips as a thing unique to itself, before it collapsed with all the violence of a dying star, and his mouth became a screaming hole.
No! You sent the assassins to kill me. You want me dead?
You determined what fate you trod. Your belief, my son, is nothing but an excuse for your own failings.
Wailing, Curze threw aside his book and hurled himself into the dreadful light, though it burned his eyes, and beat at the effigy, rending and tearing at it with broken black nails, peeling long curls of frozen flesh from the stitched carcasses, ripping it to bloody shreds. The light went out. Shaking, sobbing, he collapsed to the floor. The last remnant of his sculpture rolled wetly from the throne.
I
whispered, tears coursed down his face, dripping from his nose and chin, insufficient in their profusion to dilute the blood spilled upon the floor.
After all I have done, where would be the justice in that? I had no choice. I had no choice!
The pressure dissipated. Curze hunched down to the floor and wrapped his arms around the ruin of his substituted father. Frozen in a half embrace, he waited for a voice that he would never hear again.
Okay, before we start with Vindication, the Emperor and Konrad Curze are the same in some matters here, in terms of them blaming other people, for their actions and stuff like that, where Konrad Curze is blaming everyone, for how he has turned out as a person. He blames the Emperor for how he has turned out on Nostramo. He blames the people of Nostramo for their wickedness and their criminality, saying that, they refuse to accept his way of things, and thus it's all their fault, and they should all suffer for it and all that stuff like that. And also the Emperor is here, blaming Konrad Curze, saying that you chose to have this notion of only having one choice or having one path and not accepting other choices and stuff like that, and saying that you as Konrad Curze, you have failed at trying to change yourself, at trying to take different paths and stuff like that. Both of them blame other people or blame multiple people for what has occurred. But they never seem to be able to blame themselves or to ask themselves, what have I done wrong? The Emperor never, or maybe he has, I don't know, I'm not sure. He has never contemplated, what have I done to help my sons through these dark times that they're going through? The Emperor here, he says that he wish he had at least one more one more meeting with him, and then he would try to help out Konrad with whatever he's going through. I'm like, guy, you had ample time to do that, and you don't have to do it one more time. You can do it multiple times with him, but you never even lifted a finger to do that. So yeah, him blaming everything on Konrad and Konrad blaming everything on the Emperor, these two are so alike in that. I'm sorry guys, I'm very angry. I'm angry.
My sons, the galaxy is burning. We all bear witness to a final truth. Our way is not the way of the Imperium. You have never stood in the Emperor's light, never worn the Imperial eagle, and you never will. You shall stand in midnight clad, your claws forever red with the lifeblood of my father's failed empire, warring through the centuries as the talons of a murdered god. Rise, my sons, and take your wrath across the stars. In my name, in my memory, rise, my Night Lords. Konrad Curze, or the Night Haunter. It would be this pathetic, fractured thing that would awaken from the stasis coffin his brother had placed him in. Nearly 3 decades had passed. The rebellion was over. Sanguinius and Horus were dead, and his father laid crippled upon a throne of gold. A war that cost the lives of billions, a war that had destroyed worlds, fractured brotherhoods, families, and the Imperium had been changed forever. Eventually being discovered by a human salvage ship, Konrad reawakened, massacring the crew. the poor, innocent people aboard. They found this disheveled creature in human form. Some screamed, some were frozen in place by the sheer dread, but all died at the Night Haunter's hands. Konrad was a husk, leaping from sprouts of rage, cruelty and torture to something that resembled more of a man. The Night Haunter and Konrad Curze, two aspects of one mad Primarch. With his freedom, Konrad made his way to the planet of Salgulsa, foreseeing his legion's arrival in his prescience. Like a puppet on strings, Konrad played out the part he had seen over a century ago, and prepared himself for the fated death that had once filled him with dread. He isolated himself, alone with his madness. He crafted a sculpture of flesh, made from the broken pieces of legionary slaves and servants. As the rotten, wet, disgusting thing was prodded and stitched, a twisted mockery of his father looked back at the filthy, mad, blood-soaked creature that was Konrad. He began to argue with it, swearing he could hear it speak. Oh, he hated him. His father, the arbiter of his fate, his architect for the state he was in. Look at him now, a broken corpse god, set on a path where he was to be worshipped as a god, just like he had planned. It was all his fault. Everything Konrad had done was because of him. He had no agency. He had none of the guilt for the billions who had died. Why him? Why was he chosen to land on Nostramo, growing up unloved and alone? Why did he have to become the Night Haunter, the arbiter of a brutal justice that he had allowed to continue for over a century in the Great Crusade? Why could he have not been in his brother's place, such as Sanguinius and even Corax, two brothers cast from the same mold, but yet Corax's gifts were so much better. He haunted the night, but Corax owned it. Why did he make it so that he enjoyed the killing? Why did he make him this monster? Power and golden light began to emanate from the flesh effigy. Words pounded into Konrad, who in his broken mind he would never know if they were real or in his own head. He began to rage and condemn his father, blaming him for everything. But his father's words cut deeper than any wound ever could. You chose to believe in immutable fate. Without choice, there is nothing. Do you not see that you chose this? You chose to be fate's prisoner. Had you believed in your own agency, none of this would have come to pass. You made this happen. You chose to be the way you are. Trapped, manipulated, insane. The gods of chaos had ripped him from the Emperor's side, and the dark gods had toyed with Konrad, but he was not faultless. Those entities tried to poison him. They had shown him more possible futures when the Prescience took over, but it was Konrad who chose his fate. It was his fault. The words broke him as tears began to fall down his cheek. The boy with the knife on Nostramo, he had chosen to kill him. He had chosen to be the Night Haunter, and Dawn was right. The hatred planted in those you leave alive will pass from one generation to the next until worlds are engulfed in a war, the cause of which none of those fighting will remember. It would never end. His justice was a joke, and Sevatar was right too. How then did the other Primarchs manage to create compliant worlds? How has world upon world managed it without resorting to butchering children and broadcasting their screams across the planetary voxnets? Even the events on Davin, where Konrad's prescience failed him, showing that fate was not set. It was all his choice, and the confoundment of it all was so great that Konrad knew that to accept it, it would break the last string of sanity he had left. It is perhaps the most frightening thing in this world, what humanity does to protect itself. We will burn worlds to protect the fundamentals of who we are and our ego.
Oh, that is so true. The Amber King. Oh gosh, that's powerful. Wow, what we would do, to protect our own egos. We to such lengths, destroy everything, burn everything, all in the name of us being right. Yeah.
Our self-righteousness. Shaking, sobbing, collapsed to the floor, Konrad picked himself up and prepared to face the destiny he knew in his heart he was the architect of. The Primarch strode to his throne room, passing the sons he hated so much, and in turn his sons looked at a father that didn't love them, a father who made them monsters and then judged them for it. He had become the very thing he condemned his father for, and in a spiteful act he ordered them to fight in an unending war. Sitting on his dark throne, a mad king welcomed the assassins sent for him. Laughing, crying, and cold, he welcomed the killer in. Raving with his broken mind, he spoke of vindication, and as his head was cleaved from his superhuman body, Curze escaped the guilt for all that he had done.
Okay guys, that was Understanding Konrad Curze, 40k Lore Night Lords, featuring a Vox in the Void, made by the Amber King. Yeah, wow. Yes, this was a far more in-depth look into Konrad Curze compared to the one that I've watched previously. And yeah, I feel sorry for him. I feel sorry for Konrad Curze, what he had to go through on Nostramo and what, he has been living through on that world really did define him. It really did make him into who we see. He had choices, but he says he did try to change, but I didn't see it, I didn't hear it from the Amber King, so, I'm not sure about that, but, he was really stuck in his own ways. He believed in himself being right 100% of the time. Never once did he question himself, never once did he question his methods of doing things, and I don't understand why the Emperor made him that way, in terms of his genes or DNA. Why did he make him believe in himself so much that he cannot have advice or suggestions from others, to question his thought process, to question his viewpoints and where he stands on particular things? Why did the Emperor make him this way? And like I said, this guy was supposed to be the judge, a judge in the Imperium of Man. This would have been a horrible judge, a terrible judge. Really. Even if he landed on a planet that, that was totally different from Nostramo, You know, if he landed on a planet that was different from Nostramo, where he had a loving family, he had a very nice environment to live in and stuff like that, he would still have this self-righteous notion in his mind that he is right, and you know, anything that he thinks about, anything that he believes is correct, is right, and it cannot be questioned. He would still have that mentality in his mind. So that wouldn't have changed. I think the only thing that would have changed is that he wouldn't be eating people, he wouldn't be killing people the way he did on Nostramos, you know. But he would still have that righteous mentality in him. And that's what I'm asking about. Like, why would the Emperor give his son that? Why that? You know? Yeah. Really. His story it really affected me. The first time when I heard it, and even now when I'm hearing it for the second time, it still affects me. You know, the people who played in this story, in terms of the important player, the Emperor of Mankind himself, you know, how he... yeah. I'm just repeating myself now. I'm repeating what I've said before in the reaction, but you know, you guys, you know what I'm talking about. Like, you know, the Emperor was not there. He was not there for his son. He was not there for any of the sons that were going through some terrible situations in their lives. He was not there. He didn't help them. He turned a blind eye. He not even turning a blind eye. He accepted how Konrad Curze's Legion, the 8th Legion, were turning out. You know, he accepted that. He used them to further, you know, conquer the rest of the galaxy. He knew what they were becoming, and yet he still used them. Only when Konrad Curze destroyed his own home planet, then the Emperor takes notice. And then he says, I'm requesting you guys back to Terra to face judgment. What is that? What is that? You knew what these people had become. You knew what your son had become. And then only when this planet is destroyed, then only then you decide, okay, I need you to come back so I can talk to you. No. Emperor. Oof. Guys, yeah, no, this was good. This was really good. If I'm this emotional about about Warhammer 40k, then you know this was a good installment. This was a good story. It was really good the way the Amber King conveyed it with the association of a Vox in the Void. You know, they really did good work here. There are very few things that would make me this emotional, especially in terms of fictional storylines and novels and stuff like that. There are very few of them that would actually, you know, make me this involved in the storyline. And really, the story of Konrad Curze, the Night Haunter, many stories in the Warhammer universe, really, they give me this sense of passion. I don't know how else to explain it, but I'm really just, I feel my frustrations and my anger, and it's not fake. It's not like, no, like I can actually really feel it, and that's good, because that means it's ingrained in my mind. Like I'm not gonna forget about this. I'm not gonna forget about these stories. I'm not gonna forget about the Warhammer 40k community or the fictional stories behind it. You know, it's always going to be in there, and that's good. You want a story to leave an imprint on you. You know, it mustn't just be something that you've read and then you just throw it away like, okay, I'm done with it. No. This is one of those stories. This is one of those fictional universes that are going to be stuck in my mind for a very, very long time. Probably until the day I die. You know? So yeah, I really did enjoy this. As much as I might have been frustrated and angry, I really did enjoy the story. And guys, that's it. That's it for today. The Amber King, well done on this video. Well done. I really did enjoy it. Featuring a voice a vox in the void. Thank you very much as well for your own contribution into the video. Thanks to all those who have stayed for the past 2 hours, I don't know, 30 minutes listening to me talk. Thank you for staying with me. And if you like the video, remember to give me a like, comment, and subscribe to my channel. Click on the notification bell if you want to be up to date with my latest videos. And I will see you next time. Yeah, this was good. Okay, bye-bye.